Chapter 306. As previously mentioned, Noah's sensory ability was similar to intuition, but it was strengthened to the extreme, to the point of being like a scanner or even a radar. However, no matter how powerful it was, the essence of sensory ability was still intuition, and the like. Intuition could identify a person's aura, but there was no way to identify a person's appearance. Thus, under Noah's sensory ability, in the forest, an unfamiliar aura accompanied by a tall figure entered his range of sensory ability, imprinting itself into Noah's mind. It was unknown if the person discovered that he had been found, but his voice became more and more angry. "Bio! Still not coming back?" At the same time the voice reverberated, an exquisite geometric pattern flashed on the forehead of the lone golden wolf called Bio, causing the golden wolf to let out a dissatisfied growl. In the next second, the golden wolf's figure turned into a golden stream of light, flying into the depths of the forest. In a moment, it arrived at the side of the person in the forest, carried him on its back, and broke through the air. Noah reacted as soon as the golden wolf's figure moved. But in that instant, the golden wolf flew to the side of the person who had suddenly spoken, carried him on its back, and once again turned into a golden stream of light, flying into the depths of the forest at an extremely fast speed. In less than a second, the golden wolf had completely disappeared from Noah's field of vision, leaving Noah no time to chase after it. Its speed was extremely fast. But in terms of speed, if Noah did not use leap, he would not be able to compare to the golden wolf. A golden wolf with a world fragment in its body. Where did it come from? Noah, with an unprecedentedly serious attitude, began to search for the memories of this world that had been instilled into him by Gaia and Aleia. Not long after, a term appeared in Noah's mind. Could it be that's a magical beast? Just like how magicians existed among humans, some creatures that only existed in fantasy and legends also existed among beasts. Some of them came from the ecosystem, some were born from the imagination of humans, some became powerful individuals due to longevity, and some came from the evolution of nature. This type of creature that had broken away from the category of wild beasts and possessed great power was known as the magical beast. For example, demi-human fairies, giants, ghosts, dragons, and other creatures were such existences. And among these magical beasts, there was a race of werewolves. However, there was no such thing as golden hair among the werewolves. The silver werewolves were the leaders of the werewolves. They were the most powerful existences among the werewolves. Without a doubt, the golden wolf was superior to the silver wolf. In other words, it is an existence that surpasses magical beasts. Noah lowered his head and muttered, "I see. Is it a fantasy breed?" The existence that surpassed wild beasts was known as the magical beast. The existence that surpassed the magical beast was the illusory beast. It was also known as the fantasy breed. It was said that above the illusory beast, there was a type of divine beast that only existed in myths. However, that kind of existence was already comparable to the gods themselves. It was almost impossible for them to appear in this era where there were no gods. Therefore, Noah was certain that the golden wolf was a legendary fantasy breed. Moreover, because of the world fragment, the golden wolf seemed to have been affected in some way, faintly surpassing the category of a fantasy breed. Otherwise, even if the golden wolf was a fantasy breed, it was unlikely for it to have that kind of power. Even Noah could fight evenly with it at full strength. Noah did not think that an ordinary fantasy breed could achieve this kind of power. Raising his head and looking in the direction where the golden wolf disappeared, Noah could not help but laugh bitterly. Things seemed to have become a little troublesome. After saying that, Noah sorted out his emotions and turned around as if he had sensed something. He looked behind him. There, Yuzhu, who was dressed in black, was rushing over with somewhat hurried footsteps. When Yuzhu arrived at the scene in front of her made her black hole-like eyes reveal a shocked expression. The ramp that was originally paved with asphalt seemed to have been razed to the ground, exposing the charred earth. The surrounding forest seemed to have been bitten by something, and a large piece of it was missing on both sides. The guardrail of the asphalt road had long disappeared. The broken wood of the trees was scattered all over the ground. Some of the green leaves had turned yellow, and some had become charred, as if they had been burned overnight by a fire. It was especially miserable. What shocked Yu Zhu the most was the magical aura that still filled the air. The magical aura that made one's heart palpitate like a volcano that had just erupted caused Yu Zhu's heartbeat to involuntarily speed up. When she noticed that the exact same magical aura was surging on Noah's body, how could Yu Zhu not understand who had caused all of this? Fortunately, Yu Zhu had arrived late and was not able to see the space that had been directly broken by Noah's full-strength crush. Otherwise, it was easy to imagine how shocked Yu Zhu would be. Looking at Noah standing in the middle of the charred earth ramp, Yu Zhu slightly clenched her small fists and walked step by step to Noah's side. Her voice was extremely grave. What exactly happened? From Yu Zhu's tone, Noah could tell that she attached great importance to this matter. Therefore, Noah did not need to ask. He could even guess that if he hid this matter, Yu Zhu would definitely not trust him again. Of course, Noah did not intend to hide it. There was nothing to hide about this matter. As you can see, I was attacked. Noah sighed. Moreover, it was not an ordinary attack. Yu Zhu did not speak. She just looked at Noah and quietly waited for Noah's explanation. Noah turned around and faced Yu Zhu. Fantasy breed. If I'm not wrong, this is the attacker. Moreover, behind this fantasy breed, there seems to be a magician controlling it. What did you say? Yu Zhu's pretty face finally changed uncontrollably. Fantasy breed. This term might be just a simple taboo to a layman. But to a magician like Yu Zhu, it was a miracle that absolutely could not be ignored. A miracle. Fantasy breed itself was an existence that could be directly linked to the terms mysterious and miraculous. For a fantasy breed whose existence itself was mysterious, its existence alone was above magic. In this world, the mysterious would be defeated by an even more powerful mystery. Compared to a fantasy breed, the mystery of magic seemed weak. That level of mystery was nothing to a fantasy breed that existed in fantasy and legends. Therefore, magic could not be compared to a fantasy breed. No matter how strong the magic was, there was no way to leave any damage on a fantasy breed. For a magician, a fantasy breed was a natural enemy. There are fantasy breeds in Sanyi City, and there are magicians who can control fantasy breeds. Yu Zhu seemed to want to deny this, but in the end, she chose to remain silent. Noah knew that Yu Zhu was starting to find it difficult to back down. As the manager of Sanyi City's spirit vein, how could Yu Zhu ignore the appearance of a fantasy breed and a magician who could control fantasy breeds in her territory? After all, fantasy breeds were the natural enemies of magicians. As long as it was a magician, it was absolutely impossible to defeat a fantasy breed. It was not that she looked down on magicians, but it was just like a cat eating a mouse. Fantasy breeds were the bane of magicians, and there was no other way. If Noah, who had Avalon, made Yu Zhu helpless, then a magician with a fantasy breed was a real threat. She had just solved Noah's problem, but now she had to worry about a fantasy breed and a magician who could control fantasy breeds. Let's leave this place first. Noah interrupted Yu Zhu's silence. The commotion just now was too big. The residents of Hakwanushi and even Sanyi City must have noticed it. It will be troublesome if someone comes up later. Yu Zhu immediately looked around. After hesitating for a moment, she walked forward. Why don't you come with me? Go! Noah was stunned. Go where? Yu Zhu did not turn around and directly threw out two words. The church. Chapter 307. In Mayo City, there was a church. The residents of Mayo City usually referred to it as the church. Hityin Church. This was the full name of the church. It was located next to the number 1 General Hospital in Sanyi City. It was as if it was on purpose to attract the attention of passers-by, and they couldn't help but take a look at it. For Mayo City, which had only been a small city for 10 years, the existence of a church was a bit extravagant. This was because there were no foreigners here, nor were there any devout believers. Only the residents of Sanyi City, which was not far from the church, would come here to pray on Sunday. Compared to the size of the church, it was more or less a waste. However, this church had an extraordinary significance to the people in charge of Myo City. This was because it was the branch of the Magic Association in Sanyi City. It was also the branch of the Holy Church that viewed magicians as heretics and was the archenemy of the Magic Association. However, they were currently in a state of truce. Although Aoko and Yuju were both magicians, they did not join the Magic Association, nor did they join the Holy Church. They only managed Myo City's spiritual vein as freelance magicians. As the family that managed Myo City's spiritual vein, although they were freelance magicians, they had a cooperative relationship with the Magic Association and the Holy Church. Therefore, as long as Aoko and Yuju were still the managers of Myo City's spiritual vein, as long as they did not offend the Magic Association and the Holy Church, the Magic Association and Holy Church branches in Myo City had the obligation to help them. Of course, Aoko Aozaki and Yuju both had their own insistence when it came to defending against external enemies. They wouldn't allow the church, which was neither friend nor foe, to interfere, nor would they take the initiative to ask for help. However, when it came to dealing with trivial matters, no matter how unwilling they could only ask for help from the church. Therefore, under the guidance of Yuju, Noah arrived at the location of the Hatien Church. Creak. As if expecting a visit, the iron door of the church was pushed open, and a very tall mature woman dressed in a nun's uniform walked out of the church. Under the gaze of Noah and Yuju, the tall nun walked to the entrance of the church in a dignified manner. For some unknown reason, her eyes were tightly shut, but she accurately turned her face towards Yuju and met her gaze. "Hello, Miss Jiwanji, I haven't seen you for a while, right?" Juyuan Temple. That was Yuju's surname. Although it was a bit unimportant, Noah only knew Yuju's surname by chance. It was said that the surname Juyuan Temple had a great background. It seemed to be a famous plutocrat in Sanyi City. However, Yuju's relationship with the Juyuan Temple group wasn't good. It could even be said to be bad. As for the reason, it was probably because the Jiwanji group was not a magic family, but an ordinary chaebol. Yuju's father was an ordinary person. Yuju's mother was a pure-blooded witch. Therefore, Yuju was born with an excellent magician bloodline. This was Jiwanji Yuju. "It has indeed been a while, Sister Zhou Sei Weijia," Yuju said to Sister Weijia Zhou with an emotionless tone. Moreover, she didn't beat around the bush at all as she spoke of her intentions. "I have something to ask Father Yongli. Father Yongli is in the church." Zhou Sei Weijia's voice sounded a bit cold. Her eyes were still closed, but she turned her head and faced Noah. "However, Miss Juan Temple, do you want to bring this person in as well?" From Zhou Sei Weijia's voice, Noah could hear a sense of coldness that kept people 1,000 miles away. And this coldness became a lot stronger after Yuju revealed Noah's identity. "Don't worry, he is related. It's just that the technique of hiding his magical power is beyond our imagination. Qing Zi and I didn't discover the magical power in his body with the help of the barrier." Yuju said. "However, Sister Weijia should be able to sense it, right?" This sentence made Noah pause, and at the same time, it also made Zhou Sei Weijia frown and nod. Indeed, there is a feeling of power flowing through his body. After saying this, Zhou Sei Weijia stepped aside and walked away without looking back. She didn't even say goodbye. She was extremely cold. Yuju didn't seem to be surprised at all. She lifted her feet and walked into the church. Noah, who was following behind Yuju, curiously asked, "How could that sister feel the magical power in my body? My magic power is obviously hidden again, isn't it?" After the battle was over, Noah once again used his limit ability to seal all the power in his body. Therefore, logically speaking, other people shouldn't be able to sense the magical power in Noah's body. But Yuju's answer made Noah a bit surprised. Sister Weijia has a congenital amblyopia and is now completely blind. But because of this, she has very powerful senses. If someone approaches her, she will definitely discover it. Yuju replied, "Even if you have concealed your magical power, as long as there is magical power flowing through your body, Sister Weijia will be able to sense it. In addition, Sister Weijia is a member of the Holy Church. She is very sensitive to the magical power of heretical magicians. You won't be able to hide it from her. Yu Zhu's words made Noah surprised. She has very powerful senses? She can even sense magical power flowing through someone's body? Isn't that very similar to Noah's perception ability? He didn't think that there would be a sister in the Holy Church who had a similar ability to Noah's perception ability. This really made Noah surprised. However, Noah also understood Josei Weijia's coldness. No wonder her attitude was so bad. If Josei Weijia was a member of the Holy Church, then it wouldn't be hard to explain. The church in the morning was especially desolate. Just like the mansion, the church didn't have a heater. The cold air filled the seemingly cold church, making people want to turn around and leave. And in this church, in front of the cross, a tall figure stood there. It was a man wearing a cloak-like coat. Wenbing Yongli, also a member of the Holy Church. But he is different from Sister Weijia. He is neutral. Normally, he represents the Holy Church to communicate with us. Yu Zhu said softly, but her gaze was very strict. His duty is to monitor us, but he also has the duty of assisting the manager of San-Yi City's spirit vein. Our target this time is him. After saying this, Yu Zhu seemed to have realized something and closed her mouth. This was because when Noah and Wenbing Yongli walked into the church, their gazes suddenly met without any warning. Moreover, one frowned, while the other opened his eyes wide in shock. Immediately after, his eyes flashed with sharpness for a moment before returning to normal. Then, the priest named Wenbing Yongli had a calm smile on his face as he walked towards the door step by step. Da-da-da-da. As Wenbing Yongli approached, a suffocating and unpleasant feeling suddenly appeared in the air. It was killing intent. True killing intent. Moreover, it was faintly discernible killing intent rising from the seemingly harmless priest. What did this mean? It meant that not only did Wenbing Yongli kill someone, but he also wanted to kill someone. And the target of Wenbing Yongli's killing intent was Noah. It was because he felt Wenbing Yongli's killing intent that Noah frowned. What was going on? Although he couldn't understand it, it didn't stop Noah from reacting. Without any intention of releasing his power again, Noah quietly looked at Wenbing Yongli, who was gradually approaching him. A trace of mockery appeared in his deep, dark eyes. At this moment, Wenbing Yongli stopped in his tracks and frowned. Then, he smiled and looked at Noah with interest. Interesting, I didn't expect to meet such an interesting guest. Yu Zhu, who felt that something was wrong, muttered to herself for a while, then chose to stand aside and watch. Noah looked straight at Wenbing Yongli and smiled, but there wasn't much of a smile in his smile. I also think it's interesting. It's one thing for a priest to have such a strong killing intent, but he also wants to kill someone he just met for the first time for no reason. It's really interesting. There's still a reason. The priest said with a sincere smile. I just want to see if I can kill him. Chapter 308. I just wanted to see if I could kill you. His words made the temperature in the room drop to freezing point. What was more frightening was that Wenbing Yongli did not sound like he was joking. Instead, he sounded very serious. This made Noah calm down instead, and he asked unhurriedly, "You mean to say that your so-called reason is just to see if you can kill me?" "I can't help it, because you're a very interesting person." Wenbing Yongli looked straight at Noah and said calmly, "When I saw you, I had a feeling that I wanted to kill you. I can feel that you're in a very weak state compared to your current strength. My intuition told me that if I wanted to kill you, if I couldn't succeed in your current state, it would be impossible for me to succeed. This made me want to see if I could do it." "Unfortunately, you found out my intention," Wenbing Yongli said in a regretful tone. "This made me feel that I couldn't kill you even if I made a move. Instead, the person who would die would be me, so I gave up." Hearing Wenbing Yongli's words, even Yu Zhu, who was watching from the side, felt a chill in her heart. What did Wenbing Yongli mean? What he meant was that he could feel that Noah was in a very weak state compared to his current strength, which was the best state to deal with. It was because of this that Wenbing Yongli became interested in Noah. He wanted to try and see if he could kill the other party once. That was the reason. There was no clear reason. There was no clear hostility. There was no reason for him to do so, nor was there any reason for him to do so. However, Wen Binjiangli wanted to have a try, so he wanted to hurt Noah. Moreover, he wanted to kill Noah. This person was simply a lunatic. Noah's eyes started to turn cold. In other words, if I also want to try and see if I can kill you, then I can do it, right? Then please allow me to beg for mercy, Wen Bingyongli shrugged and said in a half-joking and half-serious tone. Although this is not something worth mentioning for a priest, I have an extraordinary sensitivity to killing. I can feel that you're the best person to kill, and I can also feel that I can't kill you. Naturally, I can also feel that if you want to kill me, I won't be able to live. As he said this, Wen Bingyongli raised his hands as if he was surrendering, indicating that he would not resist. He sincerely wanted to beg for mercy so that Noah could not find an excuse to fight back. Then, Noah glanced at Wen Bingyongli. You're really not an ordinary kind of hateful guy. Really? Wen Bingyongli laughed bitterly. This is the first time someone has said that to me. Yuzhu, you talked to him yourself. Noah turned around and walked out of the church without looking back. I'll wait for you outside. Yuzhu did not nod or shake her head. After Noah walked out, she opened her red lips and started to talk with Wen Bingyongli. After walking out of the church, Noah came to the side of the gate. He leaned against the wall and rubbed his forehead as if he had a headache. The people in the church were really indescribable. Zhou Se Weijia, who had a sensing ability similar to Noah's. Wen Bingyongli, who did not have any restrictions on killing. Although the two of them should not be able to compare to Noah in terms of strength, it also proved that the world was big and there were all kinds of strange things, and that all kinds of people existed. At least, the memories obtained from Gaia and Aleya told Noah. In this world, Noah was not the only special one. With Zhou Se Weijia, who had a sensing ability similar to Noah's, it was possible for another existence with 3 special constitutions like Noah to appear at any time. Life forms that were even more special than fantasy breeds existed. Therefore, in this world, compared to those truly special existences, Noah was not that special. Of course, from this world's point of view, Noah, who had seen Gaia and Aleya, received gifts from Gaia and Aleya, and might even have reached the origin, was already special enough. Then, Noah began to consider the matter of the golden wolf. Noah only had one goal in coming to this world, the world fragment. Therefore, the fantasy breed that had the world fragment in its body and seemed to be affected by the world fragment had to be found. Although he did not know why a magician could control a fantasy breed with a world fragment in its body, the other party should still be in Sanio City. As long as it was in Sanio City, the matter would not be troublesome. What Noah was most afraid of was that the other party would directly escape with the golden wolf. If that happened, he would not know when he would be able to find the world fragment. In addition, the golden wolf had strength comparable to Noah. This time, there might be a tough battle to fight. GG. Just as Noah was thinking about what to do next, the sound of the church's metal door opening and closing was heard. Yuzhu walked out of the church. Behind her, the church's door closed as if it had completed its mission. Finally, with a dong sound, it was tightly shut. Looking at Yuzhu's doll-like pretty face that lacked emotion, Noah spread his hands. Was the negotiation successful? It's not considered a negotiation. Yuzhu shook her head gently. The church doesn't want the battle between magicians to affect ordinary people, so Father Yongli will be responsible for suppressing the various effects of your battle with the fantasy breed. After saying that, Yuzhu glanced at Noah. Next, I hope you can tell me what happened. Hearing this, Noah looked at Yuzhu's expressionless face and could not help but sigh in his heart. Strictly speaking, Yuzhu had come to the church this time entirely to help Noah deal with the aftermath. After all, Noah was the one who had fought with the golden wolf. The person who had caused such a huge commotion and could possibly cause a commotion was also Noah. Although Yuzhu was the manager of Sanio City's spirit vein and a magician, it was natural for her to abide by the duty of concealing the traces of magic. Thus, she took great pains to help Noah deal with the aftermath. However, help was help. Even if Noah himself did not care about the concealment of magic, he could not deny it. Here, it could be said that he owed Yuju a favor. Let's talk about it when we get back. Noah patted Yuju's little head. I owe you this time. After saying that, Noah walked forward in a carefree manner. Yuju stood in the same spot as she stared blankly at Noah's back. She raised her hand and rubbed the spot where Noah had just patted her little head. Soon after, she furrowed her brows tightly. Other than her father, there had never been a member of the opposite sex who had patted Yuju's head like Noah had. At night, in the sunroom of the manor. In other words, not only does Sanyo City have a fantasy breed that breaks the rules, but there is also a magician who seems to be able to control this fantasy breed. The worst thing is that the other party may also have their eyes on Sanyo City's spirit vein. We have to be prepared to fight with the other party, right? Aoko Aozaki looked sharply at Noah and Yuju, who were sitting at the same table as her. After a while, she held her forehead as if she had given up and looked hatefully at Noah. Is this your revenge on me? Aoko Aozaki was referring to her sudden outburst in the morning for no reason. I can't be bothered with the student union president's willfulness. Also, don't make it sound like I deliberately provoked this kind of enemy. I was the one who was attacked, and I was also confused, okay? Noah rolled his eyes and put the cup of black tea in his hand on the table. Although I'm still not sure if the magician who can control the fantasy breed has his eyes on Sanyo City's spirit vein. Since the other party is a magician, Sanyo City's barrier must have detected the other party's existence. I hope you can provide me with information in this regard. Provide you with information? Aoko Aozaki and Yuju froze at the same time. Don't be in a hurry to refuse. I know you are still wary of me, but I want to tell you that you are magicians, and fantasy breeds are the natural enemies of magicians. With your strength, you can't deal with a fantasy breed at all. Noah crossed his arms, and his voice echoed clearly. If you provide me with information, I will help you deal with that fantasy breed. Chapter 309. In the sunroom, Aoko Aozaki and Yuju stared at Noah in a daze, unable to react for a moment. This was because there were two key points in Noah's words. The first was that Noah had promised to deal with fantasy breeds. They were fantasy breeds, the ultimate mystery that only existed in fantasy and legends. Disregarding the magic principle of, the mystery will be defeated by an even more powerful mystery, fantasy breeds were also extremely powerful existences. Otherwise, how could they only exist in fantasy and legends? At the very least, Aoko Aozaki and Yuju did not think that humans could deal with such monsters. Even if they were mages who could use magic to deal with them, they believed that there was a high chance that they would fail. Of course, Aoko Aozaki and Yuju did not know that the Golden Wolf's power had already surpassed that of ordinary fantasy breeds under the inexplicable influence of the world fragment. It might even exceed the category of fantasy breeds. Otherwise, they would be even more desperate. Aoko Aozaki and Yuju could not ignore the other key point in Noah's words. You're magicians? Aoko Aozaki raised her eyebrows. What do you mean? Are you saying that you're not a magician? Yuju also recalled the night when she first met Noah and fought with him. At that time, Noah also denied that he was a magician. Could it be that Noah is really not a magician? With this thought in mind, Yuju suddenly realized that apart from the magic power flowing in his body, Noah had not used magic even once. On the night of the attack by the man with the fissure, Noah had used a power that could shatter the other party's bones. However, Yuju could not be sure whether it was magic or not. As for why Noah had magic power in his body, that was even easier to explain. In this world, magicians were not the only ones who could create magic power. In fact, magic power was life force. As long as there was a way to convert it, then anyone could convert life force into magic power. It was just a matter of how much one could convert. Under such circumstances, Noah sighed. You guys really like to think that what you think is the truth. In the beginning, you took me as a foreign magician who wanted to seize the spirit vein in Sanyi City without permission. Now, you take me as a magician without permission. I have never once said that I am a magician. Are you really not a magician? Aoko couldn't help but ask. Then what are you? Noah shrugged his shoulders and did not answer the question. Instead, he turned to look at Yu, who was staring at him, and asked in return. Yu, did you see the scene where I fought with the golden wolf today? Yu couldn't help but recall the scene where it was as if a volcano had erupted. She nodded. I only exchanged a single blow with that golden wolf, but it was a draw. This should be enough to prove that I have the ability to deal with it, Noah said calmly. In addition, I also have Avalon. Do you guys still doubt that I can't deal with that golden wolf? After Noah said this, Aoko and Yu finally remembered this matter. That was right. Even if the fantasy breed was considered a foul, the Avalon was also an extremely foul existence. Avalon was able to exclude all physical obstacles. Even in the face of magic, it would still be able to protect Noah from it. This way, even if the opponent was a fantasy breed, Noah would not have any problems. Moreover, Avalon also had a healing function. No matter how much damage Noah suffered, as long as there was enough magic power, Avalon would continuously provide healing and let Noah recover to his original state. Therefore, Avalon could be called a mobile stronghold. That was why Avalon was known as the strongest guardian. With Avalon, even if Noah could not defeat a fantasy breed, he could put himself in an invincible position. After understanding this, Aoko and Yu looked at each other. Yu. Aoko's expression was full of seriousness. What do you think? Yu muttered to herself. After a while, she raised her eyes and looked at Noah. Why do you want to help us? This was Yu's only question. Logically speaking, Noah should have no reason to help. Unless Noah had his own reasons. There's nothing to hide. Noah tapped the table in front of him with his fingers and then sighed slightly. Didn't I say before that I stayed in Mayo City because there was something I wanted to find? Upon hearing this, Aoko and Yu immediately understood what was going on. Just as you guessed, the thing I want to find is on that fantasy breed. Noah curled his lips and smiled. We have the same goal, so there's a need for us to cooperate, right? You're wrong. Aoko glanced at Noah. We haven't confirmed that the other party will attack Mayo City's spirit vein. Perhaps they are like you. You have your eyes on them and they have their eyes on you. Otherwise, why would they attack you? If the other party has no intention of attacking Mayo City's spirit vein, then there's no need for us to help you, Yu said faintly. Similarly, there's no need to provide you with information. Oh! Noah silently curled up the corner of his mouth. In other words, you'd rather let a fantasy breed and a magician with unknown motives lurk in Mayo City and plant dangers that could explode at any time than provide me with information? Aoko and Yu raised their eyebrows at the same time and remained silent. For you, investigating the other party's location is just a piece of cake, and there are no disadvantages. Furthermore, we can't rule out the possibility that the other party has no intention of attacking Mayo City's spirit vein, Noah said, pressing on step by step. Wouldn't it be better for me to deal with that fantasy breed and help you eliminate the hidden dangers? The sunroom immediately fell into silence. I understand, Aoko sighed slightly and said to Noah with a serious expression, we'll provide the other party's location. In exchange, if the magician behind the scenes really intends to attack Mayo City's spirit vein, you have to be responsible for dealing with that fantasy breed. No problem. Noah readily agreed. At the same time, Yu extended her hand and extended a fair and slender finger. She gently tapped the table before her. Plop. Suddenly, the table in front of Noah, Aoko, and Yu seemed to have assimilated into the surface of the water, and a circle of ripples appeared amidst the sound of water. A thick fog suddenly rose, and a mirror slowly emerged from the fog. On the mirror, the image of a city gradually appeared. That was Mayo City. Next, Yu began to use Mayo City's barrier to conduct a comprehensive investigation of the entire city. The target of the investigation was naturally an individual with magic power. However, after half an hour of work, Aoko and Yu were still unable to discover any signs of a foreign magician in Mayo City. After waiting quietly for about half an hour, Noah finally sighed softly. It seems that we can't find him. Like you, the other party has some kind of technique that can hide the existence of magic power. Yu closed her eyes, and her quiet voice echoed. Things are a bit strange. Strange. A trace of confusion appeared on Noah's face. You still don't know, right? Ayoko gritted her teeth and said this sentence. In the past month, we haven't been able to detect the existence of magic power. Other than you, there are also foreign magicians that you know about. Including this magician who can control a fantasy breed this time, there are 3 beings that we can't detect magic power this month. Yu Zhu's expression became solemn. This is something that has never happened before, but it has happened 3 times in a row this month. Could it be that there's a problem with the barrier? 3 times? Noah scratched his cheek. Why are you so sure that it's 3 times? Noah's words made Ayoko and Yoju's hearts tremble. Why are you so sure that it's 3 times? Ayoko's gaze gradually became sinister. The foreign magician and the magician who can control a fantasy breed might be one and the same. Yu Zhu lowered her head and fell silent. Noah cast his gaze outside the courtyard, and his eyes flickered slightly. This matter is indeed very troublesome. Chapter 310. Walala. He didn't know when it started, but the sound of rain could be heard clearly even though it was isolated by the window. Noah was woken up by the sound of the rain. He yawned as he got up from the bed and looked out the window. In the cold winter, a curtain of rain mixed with low temperatures filled the courtyard outside the mansion. It was obvious that the already very low temperature had dropped a little more. The sky was grayish-black. All the scenery outside the window was covered by the curtain of rain, silently making people's moods become heavy. Looking at such a scene, Noah, who was sitting on the bed, couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable, and his emotions gradually drifted away. Ever since they came to the conclusion that the magician controlling the fantasy breed was likely to be the same person as the foreign magician, Ayoko Aozaki and Yoju's lives became busy. 3 days had passed since then. Perhaps it was because she had formed a partnership with Noah, but Ayoko Aozaki finally confessed to Noah about the foreign magician. This matter actually had to start from before Noah arrived in this world. There were 2 barriers in Sanyo City, and one of them was responsible for managing the flow of mana in the spirit vein in Sanyo City. This barrier actually relied on the 5 fulcrum points carved on the ground of Sanyo City to form a typical square formation that maintained the circulation of mana in the spirit vein. Then, through artificial control of the direction of the circulation, the mana of the spirit vein was concentrated in the Kuyuenji mansion, which was the principle of the manor. The barrier in charge of managing the spirit vein was formed by these 5 fulcrum points. In other words, if these 5 fulcrum points disappeared, the spirit vein in Sanyo City would completely regain its freedom. At that time, Ayoko Aozaki and Yuju could announce that they were no longer managers. This was also the reason why Ayoko Aozaki and Yuju couldn't ignore Noah and wander around Sanyo City. Ayoko Aozaki and Yuju were worried that Noah would eliminate the fulcrum points of Sanyo City's barrier one by one, thus bringing the restored spirit vein under his management and becoming the new manager of the spirit vein. This was why they chose to negotiate with Noah. The cause of the incident was the inexplicable disappearance of one of the 5 fulcrum points. At that time, Noah had yet to come to this world. Ayoko Aozaki and Yuju, who had sensed that the fulcrum of Sanyo City's barrier had been removed, were caught off guard. This was because the first barrier in Sanyo City was used to detect the movement of magic power. If an external magician wanted to make a move on the fulcrum of the spiritual vein barrier, Ayoko and Yuju should be able to discover the other party's whereabouts in advance. However, it was unknown what method the enemy used, but Sanyo City's barrier was completely unable to detect the enemy's movements. In order to eliminate external enemies, Ayoko and Yuju began to ambush and investigate the 5 supporting points of Sanyo City's barrier. Finally, not long after, they discovered some traces of magic power being used in one of the supporting points in the forest between Sanyo Town and Sanyo Mound. And so, Ayoko Aoki and Yuju came up with a plan to deal with the enemy. The first was Yuju. She was responsible for monitoring the forest between Sanyo Town and Sanyo Mound. If she discovered traces of the enemy, she would immediately eliminate them. Next was Ayoko Aozaki. She was responsible for monitoring the other fulcrum point. The enemy there was also Ayako Aozaki's first opponent after she was born as a magician. In the end, the two girls met with an accident. The forest that Yuju was monitoring was the one where Noah had concealed his identity to test Ayako Aozaki. He purposely triggered the barrier and attracted Yuju to the forest. That night, Yuju was attacked by two men with a split mouth. Although Noah had protected Yuju by accident, Yuju also discovered that the two men with a split mouth were actually man-made dolls and not magicians from the outside world. As for Ayako Aozaki, there was no need to mention her. Before she even met an opponent, the dolls that were sent out were kicked back to the garbage collection station by Noah. They did not even have the chance to appear. After that, Noah, Ayako Aozaki, and Yuju entered into a cohabitation agreement until now. In other words, there was still no trace of the magician who had sneaked into Sanyo City before Noah's arrival. Moreover, not only did the other party have all kinds of dolls and send them out to harass the enemy, but it was also very likely that he was the magician who could control the fantasy breed that Noah had discovered. In addition, the other party could hide from Sanyo City's detection barrier. It was imaginable how troublesome it was. Because of this, Noah, Ayako Aozaki, and Yuju still signed an agreement. Ayako Aozaki and Yuju would continue to investigate Sanyo City while Noah only needed to wait. Of course, it was also possible that the magician who controlled the dolls and the golden wolves were not the same person. However, both magicians had the means to hide from Sanyo City's barrier, so Ayako Aozaki and Yuju felt that the probability was not very high. Noah's appearance was already a special case. It was impossible for another one to appear. In the end, this matter was in a deadlock for the past 3 days, and there was no progress at all. No matter what, the world fragment has to be found. Noah lifted the blanket and began to put on his clothes. Today was the founding anniversary of Sanyo High School, and all the teachers and students were on holiday. Yuju, who was not studying at Sanyo High School, went to school early. Ayako Aozaki knew that it was a rest day, so she stayed up all night to work and was now sleeping like a log. After Noah finished his breakfast, he wanted to watch TV to pass the time, but at that moment, a clear ringtone sounded from the direction of the hall. Ring, ring, ring. It was the ringtone of the phone placed in the hall. The sudden ringtone stunned Noah. After hesitating for a moment, he did not choose to pick it up. In this place, other than Ayako Aozaki and Yuju, Noah only knew his classmates from 2A. However, none of them knew that Noah was staying here. Therefore, this phone call was definitely not for Noah, so it was better for Noah not to pick it up. Ring, ring, ring. The ringtone of the phone kept echoing. After an unknown amount of time, chaotic footsteps came from the direction of the stairs, followed by Ayako Aozaki's angry roar. Noah, why didn't you pick up the phone? Noah subconsciously covered his ears, ignoring the faint anger of Ayako, who was awakened from her lack of sleep, from the direction of the living room. He continued to watch TV. After Ayako Aozaki hung up the phone, her anger seemed to have reached a new level. It was as if she deliberately increased the sound of her footsteps and walked up the stairs to the second floor. If Yuju knew that Ayako Aozaki treated her home so rudely, she would probably be furious, right? Bang! After a while, Ayako Aozaki, who had put on her uniform, pushed open the door of the living room heavily and looked at Noah with an extremely unfriendly gaze. You seem to be quite free. I don't want to be so free. Noah did not even look at Ayako Aozaki's direction and continued to watch TV. But I don't know how to use the bounded domain in Sanyo City, so I can't detect the enemy, so I can only do this. Ayako Aozaki suddenly clenched her fists, resisting the urge to punch Noah's face, and glared at Noah angrily. Thanks to you, I'll be even busier in the future. After that, Ayako Aozaki slammed the door and left. I'm going to school, you stay at home. Why are you going to school now? Noah was slightly startled, but after a while, he seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes lit up, and he hurriedly shouted outside. President, can you lend me your study room? As you wish. After leaving this sentence, Ayako Aozaki's voice completely disappeared. Noah, however, was refreshed. He turned off the TV, walked out of the living room, and walked in the direction of the second floor. This was the study room located next to Aoko Aozaki's room. Just like an ordinary study room, there were several bookshelves here, and an office desk was placed in the center of the room. Not only were there all kinds of things that belonged to Aoko Aozaki on the desk, such as instruments, but there were also piles of thick books. Click. With the sound of the door opening, Noah walked into the area that usually only belonged to Aoko Aozaki. Chirp chirp. On the window, a blue robin stood there, hopping about. Noah ignored the robin, went directly to the desk, and picked up a book on the desk. The title of the book was Magic Generation. This was a book that recorded the knowledge of magic. Chapter 311. In fact, Noah was quite interested in the magic in this world. In terms of power, the magic in this world was far inferior to the magic in the world of fairy tale. After all, the magic in the world of fairy tale was basically biased towards combat and focused on power. Even the Dragon Slayer magic existed. As long as the magic of the sorcerers continued to improve, the power of the magic would become stronger and stronger. It could be said that there was no end to it. On the other hand, the magic in this world was more focused on research. Most of the magic was actually not suitable for combat, but it won because there was a wide variety of magic, and there were all kinds of magic with all kinds of effects. For example, barriers that could disperse crowds, suggestions that could affect one's mind, hypnosis that couldn't be guarded against, as well as tamed demons, magic eyes, and other unique uses of magic. These could play a great role in certain situations, and if used to assist in battle, it would be very unexpected. As the saying goes, better safe than sorry. Noah would never complain about having more means and abilities. The books in this study were basically magic books that Aoko Aozaki had brought over from the Aozaki residence. It was said that there was a library in the mansion, and the number of books there was more than 10,000 times that of this study. It was a place that even Aoko Aozaki found troublesome. Therefore, if possible, Aoko Aozaki avoided going to the library as much as possible. Therefore, the books that were useful to Aoko Aozaki were usually in this study. Aoko Aozaki was also an apprentice magician and a half-baked magician who could not even use the magic passed down in her family. Because of this, most of the books in this study were about magic. For Noah, the books in Aoko Aozaki's study were just right for him. Chirp chirp chirp. The robin, who did not expect Noah to come here, and did not expect that Noah would directly flip through the books in the study, seemed to be startled and let out a pleasant cry. Noah glanced at the robin, and then revealed a subtle smile. I was just looking for a target to try out my magic. Chirp chirp. The robin suddenly stiffened, and then flapped its wings as if it was running for its life, and flew away without looking back. Seeing this, Noah couldn't help but laugh. This robin was familiar with pearls. Not only did it have the intelligence of a human, but it was also said that it could speak human language. Although Noah had never seen it before, the robin often flew around the manor house. Over time, Noah learned of its existence. He believed that the messenger bird would report to Yuju about Noah coming to the study today to flip through the magic books, right? Shaking his head, Noah picked up the book titled Magic Generation and flipped through it. In the world of fairy tale, the bodies of the sorcerers were able to store magic from all things in the world. Once his mana was depleted, his body would automatically absorb magic spirits from the atmosphere to replenish his mana. In other words, the sorcerer was like a container that stored and absorbed mana. They could freely absorb mana from the atmosphere to replenish themselves. In this world, the source of magic power for magicians came from two sources. One was the life force from the outside world, known as the big source. The other was the life force they possessed, known as the small source. In this world, magicians had simulated nerves called magic circuits in their bodies. Once they were born, the quantity and quality had already been determined. It would not be increased by external factors and was used to convert life force to form a magic conversion circuit. The more magic circuits in a magician's body, the more magic they could convert from the big source, and small source. The book in Noah's hand called Magic Generation explained how to determine the number of magic circuits, which was the aptitude of a magician. According to this method, Noah helplessly found that there was not even a single magic circuit in his body. This was normal, because Noah did not need to be like the sorcerers in the world of fairy tale to absorb mana from the outside world. He also did not need to be like the magicians in this world, absorbing life force from the big source and small source to convert and generate mana. Noah's body was born to be self-sufficient in generating mana. Moreover, the quality and quantity of mana could almost be said to be unparalleled. It was precisely because of this that Makarov was so shocked when he discovered how special Noah's physique was. Therefore, Noah's physique was very special, and the ability to generate mana alone was a special characteristic that others could not imitate. With such conditions, Noah could skip a lot of steps if he wanted to learn magic. Generally, a novice magician would first have to open and activate their own magic circuits, one by one. Then, they would have to work hard to convert the life force in their greater source and lesser source to store magic power. Then, they would have to learn how to control magic power before learning magic. Noah did not need to painstakingly generate mana, and his control of mana had been practiced countless times for this purpose. He had already reached the point of perfection, and he could start learning magic directly. At that moment, Noah directly put the book in his hand on the desk, went to the front of the bookshelf, and began to flip through the books. Half an hour later, Noah took a book of mana processing, a book of magic eye manufacturing, a book of demonic eye division, and a book of magic base connection, a total of 4 thick books, and walked out of the study. Holding the 4 thick books, Noah came to the living room and sat on the sofa. First, he put the 3 books of mana processing, magic eye manufacturing, and demonic eye division on the table, then picked up magic base connection and read it. The so-called magic base connection referred to the magic patterns engraved in the world. When magicians used magic, they needed to get in touch with the magic base connection that had been engraved in the world in advance, so that the magic patterns in the magic base connection could be activated, and thus magic would be formed. In order to push the magic patterns and form magic, magicians first had to generate magic power, and the generated magic power would be sent to the magic base connection through the magic circuit, and then the magic patterns would be activated. In this way, magic would be formed. For example, the magic base connection was equivalent to a car, and gasoline was magic power, and magic was the phenomenon of car driving. Only by injecting magic power into the magic base connection could the car driving phenomenon be activated, that is, the magic would be activated and magic would be used. In other words, if you want to use magic, you must have the magic power, the key, and the magic circuit to inject the magic power into the magic base plate. These 3 things are the magic power needed to activate the magic base plate, the key, and the magic circuit needed to inject magic power into the magic base plate. Noah furrowed his brows when he saw this. In terms of magic power, Noah did not lack at all. The key referred to the engineering and incantation of magic, which Noah could also learn from the books. But Noah himself did not have a magic circuit at all. How could he use the magic circuit as a channel to get in contact with the magic base connection engraved in the world, and then push the magic patterns to form magic? Could it be that the path of magic was not possible by himself? Whatever, let's try it first. Noah made up his mind and flipped through the magic base connection in his hand again. After confirming the method, according to the method recorded in the book, he slowly lifted the limited state of magic power, let the magic power flow like the magic circuit, and then communicated with the world. After 3 seconds, Noah opened his eyes, and his eyes were full of strangeness. I actually succeeded in one go? Without the magic circuit, it was impossible to get in contact with the magic base connection. But Noah got in contact with the magic base connection without any hindrance the first time he released the magic power. Could it be that the participation of the magic circuit is not actually needed at all? Noah did not know that only he could get in contact with the magic base connection like this. Because Noah was the favorite child who was favored by the world, he was an existence that the will of the earth and the will of the human beings regarded as family. Even if Noah did not have the magic circuit, the world would not refuse Noah's contact. So, the world acted as a bridge for Noah, playing the role of the magic circuit, and took the initiative to connect Noah's magic power with the magic-based connection of the whole world. This was what it meant to be blessed by the heavens. Chapter 3:12. Walala. The rain was still drizzling in the outside world. The outside of the manor was almost completely covered by the curtain of rain. The withered trees were already soaked. The tender grass that had just grown was dripping with water. The wasteland of the courtyard had absorbed a large amount of water, and it no longer looked as dry as before. Kacha! A clear sound of the door opening was heard. Noah's figure appeared at the entrance of the manor house and came out of the manor house. If it were someone else, they would rather die than be soaked in the rain in such a cold winter, as it would definitely make their bones itch from the cold. However, Noah, who had once trained in the deep mountains and forests for 4 years, didn't care at all. He walked into the cold curtain of rain and walked around in the courtyard. After a while, Noah stopped in front of a rock. Taking a deep breath, Noah slowly raised his hand and pointed his palm in the direction of the rock. Collect! The moment the incantation sounded out, Noah opened his palm in the direction of the rock, and a faint blue light emerged. Wang! The magic that could be seen with the naked eye turned into a faint light that spun around Noah's hand. In a short moment, it covered Noah's entire arm. Immediately, a precise geometric pattern suddenly spun in front of Noah's palm. The edges of the pattern also spun with a few other smaller magic formations, flashing with a dazzling phosphorescence. Cast! The incantation to pull the trigger of the magic spell that had been formed in his hand also reverberated. Bang, 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 bang. The faint blue geometric pattern in front of Noah's palm suddenly spun, and the phosphorescence directly converged on the smaller magic formations at the edges of the pattern. The magic also turned into fist-sized cannonballs, and in the midst of gunshots, they rubbed against the atmosphere and flashed out like flashes of light. The 4 magic bullets carried a heavy force that was enough to shatter a person's skull. Amidst the sharp sound of the air breaking, they heavily landed on the rock not far away. Bam, 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 bam. Immediately, every single magic bullet produced a dull sound of impact and a burst of light smoke on the hard rock. In the end, 4 scorch marks were left on the rock, which were quickly washed away by the rain. Looking at this scene, Noah was slightly disappointed, but he also couldn't help but laugh. Disappointingly, the power of the simple, magic bullet wasn't that great. Even if it contained enough power to shatter a person's skull, it was only an extremely convenient murder weapon for humans. Those who could not help but laugh were self-deprecating after realizing their own disappointment. How long has it been since I started learning magic? This kind of power is already not bad, right? That was the truth. Magic bullet was a very simple magic trick. Rather than calling it magic, it would be better to say that it was simply processing, transforming, and strengthening the pure magic power, turning the magic power into something like a magic power cannonball, and then shooting it out. It was just like making water into a water ball. Even if the inside of the ball was soft, it would still hurt when it hit someone. For such a simple magic trick, Noah could learn it almost immediately, but if he wanted to become proficient, he still needed to practice. Magic bullet was also the first magic trick that Noah learned from mana processing. It was the same magic trick as Aoko Aoko. The difference was that Aoko Aoko's magic bullet basically didn't need to be activated by herself. She only needed to activate the magic bullet recorded in the magic seal, unlike Noah, who still needed to chant an incantation to activate it. Let's try again. Noah was never lacking in hard work. As a product of mana processing, if he could master the magic bullet, it would also increase his control over magic power. Therefore, Noah would not be stingy with his hard work. Bam, 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 bam. Thus, in the manor house's courtyard, the sound of the magic bullet being shot turned into echoes, constantly reverberating. Bam, 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 bam. The dull sound of the impact was also heard, causing a burst of light smoke and a burnt smell, but it was quickly washed away by the rain. Just like that, time continued to pass. Gradually, the time needed to form the magic bullet was shortened bit by bit, and Noah also became more and more proficient in the simple incantation technique, not as awkward as he was at the beginning. After an unknown amount of time, outside the courtyard's iron fence, a figure slowly appeared. Aoko, who was holding a large red umbrella, had just pushed open the iron fence when she heard the movement in the courtyard. She suspiciously turned her head to look at the source of the sound, and when she saw Noah, who was continuously shooting the magic bullet, her expression immediately turned into one of shock. Magic? But didn't he say that he wasn't a magician? With such a question in her mind, Aoko immediately began to seriously observe Noah. Bam, 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 bam. The bright blue flashes were mixed with the dull sounds, flickering in the air above the courtyard. Bam, 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 bam. Under the curtain of rain, the hard rock still stood there motionlessly, facing the incoming blue flashes and withstanding every heavy blow. Over time, even the rock that was not damaged in the beginning started to crack under the continuous bombardment of the magic bullet. Noah's eyes lit up, and the corner of his mouth rose. The magic in his body continuously circulated, flowing into the flickering phosphorescent arm and pouring into the spell formation that had not yet disappeared, turning into magic bullet after magic bullet, continuously bombarding the rock. Aoko, who was standing at the edge of the iron fence and watching all of this, already had the corner of her mouth twitching. Could it be that that guy's magic is inexhaustible? Not to mention how many magic bullet Noah had shot before Aoko returned. From the time Aoko returned, Noah had shot at least 100 magic bullet. Aoko was only an apprentice magician, but no matter what, she was still the manager of the spirit vein in Sanio City. With the support of the magic in the spirit vein, Aoko could use about 30 magic bullet a day, and then the magic in her body would be completely exhausted. Compared to Aoko, the guy in front of her who was wantonly shooting magic bullet, with a face full of unsatisfied and restless expression, was simply a monster. Aoko felt that if she continued to watch like this, perhaps her small sense of superiority in magic would be completely destroyed. At that moment, Aoko unhappily opened her mouth. "What are you doing here?" Noah, who was highly concentrated, did not seem to notice Aoko's approach. When he heard Aoko's voice, he was slightly startled, and reflexively turned his head, looking behind him. When he clearly saw the owner of the voice, he raised his eyebrows. "You're back." Aoko still had a sullen expression, looking very gloomily at Noah. "What are you doing here?" "It's as you see." Noah retracted his mana without any hesitation, causing the tactical magic array that was floating in the air like a turret to dissipate. "I'm learning magic." "Learning?" Aoko's expression became interesting, and her tone was full of uncertainty. "What you mean is, you just learned the magic bullet?" "Yes." Noah nodded and said doubtfully, "Is there a problem?" Aoko was speechless. With Aoko's personality, how could she admit that Noah's newly learned magic was comparable to hers? Noah was not a wise sage, so naturally he could not always guess Aoko's thoughts. Seeing Aoko's gloomy expression, he somewhat curiously asked, "What's wrong? Did something good happen in school?" As soon as this sentence came out, Aoko's sullen expression turned completely gloomy. "Hey, Thaw-sen." Aoko suddenly said such a sentence. "How do people communicate with bears?" "That's a very deep question." Noah was stunned. "Could it be that you met a bear?" "No." Aoko sighed faintly, and then said bitterly, "But I really hope that I met a bear. At least if I met a bear, I could go up and fight with it. I don't have to worry about whether I can fight or not." After saying this, Aoko coldly snorted and walked into the mansion. Noah's mouth twitched. What the hell is going on? Chapter 3:13. The sunlight room at night was just as bright as it was during the day. The bright light illuminated the room, which was 1/3 of the room made of glass. At the dining table, a man and 2 women were once again eating dinner. Noah picked up strands of noodles with his fork, rolled them up, and put them into his mouth. His other hand was holding the book, Demonic Servant Division, and he was reading it seriously. On the other side, Yuju, who was said to have eaten outside, was also holding a book in her hand. However, her mind was obviously not on the book. Sometimes she would look at Noah, who was reading seriously, and sometimes she would look at Ayoko. Her dark eyes were filled with confusion. She wondered why Noah was reading such a book. She also wondered why Ayoko was in such a bad mood. At this time, Ayoko was seriously dissatisfied because she couldn't order takeout and had to cook. She ate the food she made as if nothing had happened and didn't say a word. Originally, Ayoko and Yuju didn't have much in common with each other except for magic. Before Noah lived in the mansion, Ayoko Aozaki and Yuju would often be like this. Even if they sat together, they wouldn't say a word for a long time. They were already used to each other's silence. However, today's silence was a bit different. Ayoko didn't seem to have anything strange on the surface, but the more she acted like she didn't care, the more emotional she was. Yuju, who had lived with Ayoko for about 2 years, could easily see that Ayoko was sulking. Moreover, she didn't seem to be angry because she couldn't order takeout. Yuju wasn't a person who cared about other people's feelings. But this time, maybe because there was a third party around, Yuju asked Noah a question, which she rarely did. Ayoko, what's wrong? Who knows? Noah was still looking at his book, rolling his noodles and speaking in an indifferent tone. I heard that you met an opponent even more difficult to deal with than a bear. I just don't know who it is. Can we not talk about this? Ayoko said gloomily. I already feel like I'm very unlucky. Really? Yoju's gaze lingered on Ayoko for a moment before she replied as if it had nothing to do with her. I just hope you don't affect the lives here. The side here was not referring to the life in the mansion, but the life of a magician. Although he didn't know what happened to Ayoko, it seemed to be something that happened when she was active in Sano City as an ordinary person. Magicians were a special group that lived in seclusion in modern times. It could not be said that magicians did not interact with ordinary people, but in order to maintain the concealment principle of magic, magicians would not get too close to ordinary people. After all, once he became intimate with someone, it would increase the chances of his secret being exposed. Yuju didn't object to Ayoko going to an ordinary high school, but she seemed to be somewhat dissatisfied with Ayoko's emphasis on the life of an ordinary person. Ayoko also understood Yoju's meaning, and the anger in her heart suddenly disappeared, and she seemed to have calmed down. I know what you mean. Don't worry, I'll coordinate the lives of both sides. I just lost my cool today because I met that transfer student. Noah finally raised his head from the book in his hand and looked at Ayoko in surprise. Transfer student? You mean our school? I don't want to admit it, but unfortunately, our school seems to have been targeted by all kinds of strange transfer students this month. It's already incredible to have one, and now there's another one. It's simply a miracle. Ayoko said this sentence as if she was referring to something. The most incredible thing is that this transfer student came from the mountains. He didn't even have any contact with life with electricity before, and he didn't know any common sense in the city. When such a person transferred to our school, even the teachers couldn't do anything about it. I see. Noah smiled thoughtfully. In the end, the teachers couldn't do anything about it, and could only let you, the student council president, deal with this wild child. You tortured our iron and steel student council president until he lost his temper, right? Can you imagine how tiring it is to introduce the school and the classroom to a guy who doesn't even walk through the front door and only chooses to crawl through the windows? Boko said tiredly. It's already so tiring on the first day. I can't imagine how much trouble that guy will cause in the school. In other words, the student council will become a nanny team for a period of time, specifically looking after that transfer student, right? Noah couldn't help but laugh. This really makes me interested. If I have time, I'll go and meet this transfer student who came from the mountains. Saying such a sentence, Noah once again looked at the book in his hand. It was obvious that he didn't want to talk about the transfer student anymore. Why are you suddenly interested in magic? This time, it was Aoko who was curious, glancing at the book in Noah's hand. This is a book about tamed monsters, right? Don't tell me you want to make a tamed monster? Hearing this, Yuju slightly raised her eyes, as if she was also interested in this topic. I took this from your study. Noah didn't raise his head, reaching out his hand and flipping through the pages. If there's a chance, I'll try to make one. If you really want to make a tamed monster, there's an expert here. Aoko very casually said such a sentence. Don't forget, Yuju is the best at making all kinds of tamed monsters. Noah immediately looked at Yuju, who was also looking at him. When their eyes met, he also remembered Yuju's uniqueness. This was what Aoko, who was busy looking for signs of a foreign magician, casually told Noah when he accidentally mentioned Yuju's magic. According to Aoko, Yuju was different from other magicians. She was a pure-blood witch, and the magic she used was not in the same system as other magic. It was very unique, and only pure-blood witches could use the magic system. Fairy tale monster, Ploy Kickshaw. This was the general name of Yuju's tamed monsters. Yuju's magic was actually a fairy tale-themed curse and medicine, and the main fighting force was made up of that fairy tale monster, Ploy Kickshaw. Their prototypes came from the world of fairy tales. They were special cases created based on fairy tales. Unlike other tamed monsters, Yuju's fairy tale monster, Ploy Kickshaw, was quite powerful. Because they were born from fairy tales, the only thing that was useful to them was the same mysterious magic. Ordinary modern weapons couldn't do anything to them. Moreover, they all existed in their respective fairy tales. If you want to defeat them, you have to find their weaknesses in the fairy tales. Because of this, Yuju basically used the fairy tale monster, Ploy Kickshaw, as a fighting method. As for Yuju herself, her fighting strength was very low, and it was possible that even Aoko could defeat Yuju. However, if Yuju was given the opportunity to use her tamed monsters, then Yuju's fighting strength would be at the top of all magicians. Noah had already seen Yuju's special tamed monsters many times. For example, Diddle Diddle, after sinking into the ground, it would strengthen Yuju's magic in the middle of the night. It was the glass cat bell. For example, Gab twins. When Yuju used them to deal with Noah, they were the two verbose pigs. For example, 6 song chocolate, 24 gray starlings that were good at reconnaissance. They were mainly responsible for the surveillance of Sanio City. Their bodies were chocolate, and if a magician ate it directly, it would have a healing effect. Noah had seen this flock of birds many times. Another example was Thames Troll, which was the personification of London Bridge. It was one of Yuju's strongest tamed monsters, and the giant that Yuju used in the forest was the Thames Troll. Therefore, when it came to how to create and use tamed monsters, Yuju was definitely an expert among experts. Because of this, Noah asked Yuju, "Yuju, what kind of tamed monsters do you think I should create?" Chapter 3:14. Noah originally didn't have high expectations of asking Yuju. After all, Yuju was not only reticent, but also because she was a pure-blooded witch, she abnormally rejected humans and outsiders. The words she spoke to Noah in the manor house usually didn't exceed 5 sentences in a day. In addition, Noah, an outsider, lived in Yuju's most precious manor house because of his own interests. If Yuju was pleasant to Noah, that would be really strange. Therefore, Noah was just trying to ask. Who knew? After Yuju pondered for a while, she responded to Noah. "What kind of familiar do you want to make?" Noah looked at Yuju with some surprise, as if he didn't quite believe that Yuju really intended to ask him about the matter of making a familiar. This made Yuju frown and coldly look at Noah. "If you don't want to say it, then forget it." Noah finally reacted, put the book in his hand on the table, and seriously said to Yuju, "This book has recorded many types of familiar, so I can't make up my mind." The original intention of magicians to make familiar was to give all the trivial things, such as daily life, the collection of research materials, and so on, to an absolutely obedient assistant to do, so that the magician could concentrate on the research of magic. The simplest way to make a familiar was to make a part of the magician's body, such as hair, skin, and so on, and then make it into a familiar, or to transform other dead creatures, such as cats, dogs, and so on, into a familiar. In this way, the familiar created by magicians would be given a part of the magician's abilities. The way to make a familiar was something that every magician knew. The only question was what type of familiar to make. For example, if you want a familiar to manage daily life, then you have to give the familiar part of the abilities to focus on wisdom and endurance. For example, if you want a familiar to collect research materials, then you have to give the familiar part of the abilities to focus on detection and identification. If you want a familiar to assist in battle, then there are more things to consider. This was also the main reason why Noah couldn't make up his mind. To be honest, if possible, Noah would of course want to be like Yuju and create a familiar that was much stronger than himself, but this was somewhat unrealistic. A familiar with pearls was a special product that could only be created by a witch. Furthermore, some of the powerful tamed demons in Yuju's hands were not made by Yuju himself. They were made by Yuju's mother, or even by the witch before Yuju's mother. Although a familiar would not be stronger than its master, that was only relative. Just like Yuju, the tamed demons she created were not as strong as herself, but Yuju's mother must have been much stronger than Yuju. Even if the tamed demons she created were weaker than herself, they would still be stronger than Yuju. Not to mention the tamed demons that were passed down from the ancient witch to the present day. This kind of tamed demon that was created by the previous master and passed to another master to have a stronger power than the current master was not a strange thing. Moreover, if the target of the tamed demon originally had a strong power, then it was possible that the tamed demon was stronger than the master. Just like Noah, if he made a creature stronger than himself into a tamed demon, then the tamed demon's power would naturally be stronger than Noah's. Noah wanted to learn the method of creating a tamed demon because of this. Noah's idea was to first learn this method, so that when he obtained some powerful creatures' corpses in the future, he could directly make them into tamed demons, which would definitely be of great help to him. Therefore, although a lot of magic was not suitable for battle, but there were all kinds of strange effects. If used well, the effect would be absolutely unimaginable. You want to create a tamed demon that is stronger than yourself, right? Yuju seemed to have seen through Noah's idea, but still gave such a sentence. I don't recommend you do that. Noah suddenly froze. It is very easy to create a tamed monster, but that also requires the magical power to be divided into the tamed monster's body. Moreover, the more powerful the tamed monster is, the more magical power it needs to be divided. Yuju's words woke everyone up from their dreams. If you intend to create a tamed demon that is stronger than yourself, then you must divide most of the magic power to the tamed demon, which will greatly reduce your level, so I don't recommend you to do that. Being said so by Yuju, Noah woke up. That's right. The method of creating a tamed demon was indeed very easy. But does this mean that magicians can create tamed demons at will? Of course, that was impossible. Otherwise, even if the tamed demon was weak, magicians could still create a large number of tamed demons to form an army of tamed demons to fight against the enemy, winning with numbers. In that case, who could say that the tamed demon was weaker than the master? In that case, would magicians still need to fight by themselves? Wouldn't it be fine to just leave it all to the tamed demon? The reason why they didn't do that was because creating a tamed demon required the magic power to be divided. This part of the magic power was equivalent to being lost forever, and there was no possibility of it being used by the magician himself. If it was to create a weak tamed demon, then the magic power that was divided was not much, and the level of the magician would not decrease by much. But if it was to create a strong tamed demon, then the level of the magician would be greatly reduced. For example, Noah, if he really lost a part of his magic power permanently, then his strength would also decrease. Unless the tamed demon was really strong, otherwise, magicians generally would not make such a choice. So, Yuju, are you suggesting that I don't wait until there is a strong creature's body to create a tamed demon? Noah nodded in relief. In that case, what kind of tamed demon is best to create? It depends on where you are lacking. Yu Zhu said so. The tamed demon that you create should be able to make up for some of your own weaknesses, then it would be worth creating. Yu Zhu's words were very few, but every sentence woke Noah up. It was indeed so. Even if the tamed demon was weaker than the magician himself, if he could make up for his own weaknesses, then the effect of the tamed demon in battle would simply be extraordinary. Yu Zhu was indeed a witch who was good at tamed demons, making Noah's understanding of magic enter a new level. No matter how weak the magic was, as long as it could be used, then it would be strong. What kind of cat was the best? It was not a cat with a strong body, nor was it a cat with a gorgeous appearance, but a cat that could catch mice. The expression in Noah's eyes became brighter and brighter. After Yu Zhu's reminder, Noah recalled the magic that he accidentally saw in the morning. That magic, at the beginning, was filtered out by Noah, but now that he thought about it, if that magic was learned, it would definitely make Noah's strength rise to another level. Ha! Thinking of this, Noah couldn't help but laugh out loud, stood up, and ran outside while shouting loudly. "Thank you, Yu Zhu. I love you to death." Saying such a sentence, Noah ran into the living room and disappeared in front of the living room's door. Aoko and Yu Zhu had long been stunned by Noah's last sentence. After a long while, Aoko's eyes appeared like a kitten's mischievous light. With a sweet smile, she looked at Yu Zhu. "Congratulations, Yu Zhu." Yu Zhu didn't even look at Aoko, slightly lowered her head, raised the book in her hand, and looked at it expressionlessly, as if nothing had happened. Only Aoko knew that for her to use the book to cover nearly half of her face, needless to say, Yu Zhu must be shy. Obviously, Noah's words that burst out in joy were not harmless. On the other side, Noah went directly to the second floor, quickly walked to Aoko's study, opened the door, and went to the bookshelf that was neatly arranged with magic books, and quickly flipped through them. At a certain moment, Noah stopped the movement of his hands, the corner of his mouth slowly raised, and he pulled out a book from the bookshelf. The title of the book, Enhance. This was the magic book that Noah directly ignored in the morning, but now he was pleasantly surprised. Sure enough, no matter how small, insignificant, and weak, existence is the absolute truth, and existence has value. After that, Noah flipped through the book in his hand, immersing himself in the world of the book. Chapter 3:15. The next day, Sanyi City's sky finally welcomed light once again. It was not as gloomy as yesterday, and it was no longer raining that made people feel depressed. Walking on the asphalt road to Mayo High School, Noah held a book in his hand and kept flipping through it. Looking at his appearance, he had long been immersed in the world of books. Next to Noah, Aoko Aozaki was also there. Although Noah and Aoko lived together and went to the same high school, they did not agree to go to school together. In the end, the two lived together because of interests. They could not even be called friends. They could only be called business partners. Naturally, their relationship was not good enough for them to go to school together. Today, they went to school together because Noah and Aoko happened to go out together at the same time. Since the destination was the same and the journey was the same, it was normal for the two of them to travel together. Because there was no need to deliberately separate, right? Aoko Aochi was not the kind of person who would be hesitant about trivial matters. Noah would not stick to this kind of small matter, so he went with the flow. This kind of relationship where they went to school together but did not even speak a word to each other. If it was an ordinary person, it would be awkward to stay together and they would want to run away. Aoko, on the other hand, seemed to be no different from usual. Her expression was still as calm as ever. After all, Yu Zhu was a taciturn person. Aoko Aochi had long been used to the people around her being silent. As for Noah, his mind was not on the outside at all. Instead, it was on the book in his hand. Gradually, more and more students appeared on the road to Mayo High School. When these students saw Noah and Aoko walking together, many of them looked at each other and started to talk. "Isn't that the student president? That's the rumored transfer student, right? Why are they walking together? I heard that the student president has been inviting the transfer student on a date recently. Did they end up together? Why did I hear that the transfer student has been pestering the student president? Impossible, that's impossible. That's the student president. Don't tell me you don't know the consequences of pestering her. It seems that the student council president is wooing a transfer student. That's right. Aoko's eyes began to twitch as she listened to the discussions coming from all directions. Her eyes suddenly became incomparably ferocious as she fiercely swept her gaze around, causing the surrounding students to turn pale with fright. They shut their mouths and instantly scattered like birds and beasts. Aoko clutched her head in pain, but when she saw Noah, who was still calmly reading his book, her brows furrowed. Why are you suddenly interested in magic? Isn't it good to have one more method? Noah immediately answered Aoko's question. Although he didn't raise his head, it proved that he had been paying attention to his surroundings and wasn't really paying attention to the book. Moreover, there are some magic tricks that would be of great help to me. Is that so? Aoko was still frowning. But don't forget, magic is ineffective against fantasy breeds. Who told you that my opponent must be a fantasy breed? Noah's voice became a half-smile. Don't tell me you think that I'm going to live in seclusion in the mountains and never fight again after fighting with that fantasy breed? With that said, Noah's voice changed from a half-smile to a meaningful one. Besides, it's not like all magic spells can't be used in a battle with fantasy breeds. Aoko was startled when she heard this. Just as she was about to continue pursuing, she recalled that this wasn't something she could ask in her current position. Her brows slowly relaxed as she casually replied. No matter what, since you've learned magic, you're considered a magician. You know the rules of magicians, so in such a conspicuous place, you'd better put away the magic book in your hand. It's just a book. Don't be so surprised, Noah retorted bluntly. Even if someone sees the book in my hand, they'll most likely think that it's a novel. What you're worried about won't happen, student president. Aoko raised her eyebrows and didn't say anything. If there was really a possibility of the magic being exposed, Aoko wouldn't have waited until now to remind Noah. Besides, even if the magic was exposed, it would be Noah who exposed it. It would be Noah's business who should be silenced, and it had nothing to do with Aoko. If it was a Riho, she might have interfered because of the strict style of a magician, but Aoko was just an apprentice magician, and she had only been an apprentice magician for less than 2 years. As long as the result was not bad, Aoko would not interfere. Aoko? At this moment, an honest and calm voice came from behind Noah and Aoko Aoyagi. It was a slightly contradictory voice. Aoko's delicate body slightly stiffened when she heard this voice. Her expression that had just returned to normal instantly became fierce and sullen. It was as if she had met the god of pestilence. She secretly sighed at her own bad luck. Noah noticed that Aoko's expression was a little stiff, so he turned around in confusion and looked behind him. What entered Noah's eyes was a student wearing a boy's uniform. His age was similar to Noah and Aoko, but his appearance was somewhat ordinary. His head was slightly messy, and his body was slightly thinner than the average person. No matter how you looked at him, you couldn't see anything special about him. However, such a boy made Aoko's body stiffen, and at the same time, it also made Noah squint his eyes. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. Because of his boundless and powerful magic, almost 70% of Noah's strength was in the aspect of magic. The remaining 30%, except for Blaze, was all in the aspect of his body and combat awareness. Noah, who had tempered his strength thousands of times, could easily see that this ordinary boy in front of him was not ordinary. His seemingly low presence was actually just a layer of natural camouflage. Even though the other party was wearing a uniform and looked thin, as a combat expert, Noah instantly discovered that the body hidden under the other party's clothes was also a body that had been tempered thousands of times. There was not a trace of excess standing posture. Hidden under his confused eyes, there was a bright light. The trace of a powerful aura that was covered by the low presence, and the unnatural feeling of a relaxed body that was ready to tense up at any time. This ordinary-looking boy in front of him was definitely a combat expert like Noah, possessing good combat skills and combat awareness. All of a sudden, Noah's interest was piqued. In contrast to Noah, Aoko's face was full of discomfort as if she had swallowed a fly. But soon, Aoko realized that her emotions were inexplicably affected. Aoko originally did not like the feeling of her emotions being disturbed. Therefore, Aoko calmed down, brushed her waist-length hair, and indifferently spoke as if she was talking to an ordinary classmate. "Hello, Jingshi classmate." Jingshi? Noah was startled and then immediately remembered. This surname was not unfamiliar to Noah. Because, in the past few days, the student council headed by Aoko had been dealing with people with this surname every day. Jingshi Kusajikuro. Not long ago, Aoko had a headache, and now it was the entire student council that had a headache. Everyone knew that this was the transfer student from the mountains. He is the transfer student? Noah looked at Jingshi Kusajikuro, and just happened to meet Jingshi Kusajikuro's gaze. If it was a normal person at this time, when seeing Noah and Aoko together, they would either worry about whether they would disturb the two, or even if they did not care, they would first introduce themselves to the person they did not know. However, Jingshi Kusajikuro did not have this intention at all. After meeting Noah's gaze, he simply looked away. It was not that this person was impolite, but that this person did not know that this was the time to be polite. That was the feeling. Aoko, who did not know Noah's feeling, directly asked after greeting him, "Do you have something to do today?" Jingshi Kusajikuro's gaze became blank. "I do have a lot of things to do. Do you want to help?" Aoko's mouth twitched, and even Noah could not help but laugh. This person, unexpectedly, is a difficult person to deal with. Chapter 3:16. Noah, who was quietly observing Aoko and Shizuka Kusajiro, gradually found that this wild child called Shizuka Kusajiro really didn't know anything. He knew that there were many differences between the city and the mountains, but he didn't know what these differences meant. He knew that he had to follow the rules of the city, such as waiting for the green light to cross the road, buying things to pay, but he didn't know why these rules existed. Moreover, Shizuka Kusajiro wasn't stupid, but his thinking couldn't keep up with the speed of others. To put it simply, Shizuka Kusajiro focused more on using his body than his brain. It was that simple. Just like Naz, Shizuka Kusajiro basically used his body to remember things, not his brain. In other words, this was a person who focused more on experience than knowledge. If he understood this point, it wouldn't be difficult to deal with Shizuka Kusajiro. For example, writing, as long as he actually wrote it to Shizuka Kusajiro, it would be more effective than telling him stroke by stroke. This person simply didn't know how to beat around the bush. This made Aoko put on an unhappy expression in front of Shizuka Kusajiro, but Shizuka Kusajiro was still able to respond with a smile, making Aoko's patience gradually wear out. Seeing that Aoko seemed to be faintly holding back her anger, Noah shrugged and suddenly spoke. "Shizuka classmate, have you practiced martial arts before?" When these words came out, not only Aoko was stunned, even Shizuka Kusajiro was stunned and looked at Noah. Without asking who Noah was, and without the intention to introduce himself, Shizuka Kusajiro asked with a puzzled face. "Martial arts? It's fighting skills." Noah patiently explained. "You should understand, right?" Shizuka Kusajiro was a little surprised, but in the blink of an eye, he looked at Noah with surprise. "How do you know?" Aoko suddenly understood that Noah's words were true, and the way she looked at Shizuka Kusajiro instantly changed. If in the past, Aoko looked at Shizuka Kusajiro like she was looking at a walking trouble, then she was looking at an opponent now. After appearing in Sanyo City, Noah had transferred to Sanyo High School and caught Aoko off guard. Aoko had reason to be suspicious now. She suspected that Shizuka Kusajiro was the foreign magician who had been hiding in Sanyo. Only Noah could see that Shizuka Kusajiro's a foreign magician. Perhaps the traces and the aura could be hidden, but once it was exposed, a person's, no matter how hard they couldn't hide it, it was impossible to hide it. That day, Noah had already remembered the aura of the magician who had controlled the fantasy breed behind the scenes. Shizuka Kusajiro didn't have that person. Naturally, the two of them were completely different people. After a Juro who's silently, a Juro who? And a hoot no. After a while. In Yins, The same kind of people? Shizuka Kusajuro was even more puzzled. With his brain, he couldn't understand the meaning behind Noah's words. Let's put it this way. Noah smiled helplessly. I'm the same as you. To hone my skills, I once lived in the mountains. Shizuka Kusajuro was shocked. Then, he looked at Noah with surprise as if he had finally found a companion. Aoko's beautiful eyes widened. She was finally sure. No wonder the two people in front of her brought her all kinds of troubles. They were the same kind of people. Hey, Shizuka. Noah's eyes flashed with a delicate expression. Why don't we compete? Why? The surprise on Shizuka Kusajuro's face turned into doubt. You're not a bear. Well, Noah knew it would be troublesome to explain to this wild child in front of him, so he simply said so. Just take it as a greeting. Greeting? This time, Shizuka Kusajuro's expression was full of confusion and surprise. Is this how the people in the city greet each other? This is different from what I know. This also varies from person to person, right? Noah said so. Isn't there a saying, no discord, no concord? Hearing this, Shizuka Kusajuro was relieved. I've seen this saying before. It's true. Hearing this, Aoko could no longer ignore it. Fighting is equivalent to greeting? If this transfer student from the mountains really formed such a concept, then in the future, when he greets others in school, he won't just come up with a punch, right? Then wouldn't the student council become Shizuka Kusajuro's support group? Don't give me any more trouble. You guys. Aoko squeezed in between Noah and Shizuka Kusajuro and roared at Noah's direction. Don't tell me you don't have enough trouble now. A roar directly stunned Shizuka Kusajuro, who wasn't very smart. Ignoring the stunned Shizuka Kusajuro, Aoko aggressively said to Shizuka Kusajuro, don't take this guy's words seriously unless you don't want to live in this city, do you understand? It was unknown whether Shizuka Kusajuro understood Aoko's meaning, but he very straightforwardly nodded and said such a sentence. Since Aoko said it, then it should be true. Looking at Shizuka Kusajuro, who showed a sincere smile as if Aoko treated him so well, even Aoko was embarrassed and turned her face away. At the same time, it also amused Noah. This Shizuka Kusajuro was really interesting. In the following period of time, Noah basically ignored the boring lullaby class. Every day, he would bring a magic book from Aoko's study room and absorb all the magic knowledge and theory like a sponge. Noah originally had an extraordinary memory and understanding ability. In the 1 year in the world of the Black Bullet, Noah relied on his extraordinary memory and understanding ability to learn all the languages in the world. He also conveniently finished all the courses up to the university level. He even had time to learn hacking and piano. It was not hard to imagine how high Noah's memory and understanding ability were. Therefore, in a week's time, Noah memorized all the magic books in Aoko's study room. Of course, memorizing was one thing, but wanting to use the magic recorded in the books was another matter. Magic was not something that could be used just by memorizing. The most important thing was to learn and practice. And in this 1 week's time, Noah only learned 3 magic tricks. One was Magic Bullet. The other was Strengthen. The other was Runa. Among them, Magic Bullet, needless to say, it was the first magic trick that Noah learned. Although its power was not great, it was still relatively speaking. High power, high damage Magic Bullet also existed. Of course, at that level, instead of calling it Magic Bullet, it was better to call it Magic Missile or Magic Cannon. As for Strengthen and Runa, they were the magic that Noah paid special attention to, and he was very serious in learning them. Compared to a Magic Bullet, these 2 magic tricks were the most obvious in increasing Noah's strength. The so-called Strengthen magic was the same as its name. It was a magic trick that focused on strengthening various things. To be more precise, it should be said that it was strengthening. If it was used on a knife, it could make the knife sharper. If it was used on a stone, it could make the stone harder. If it was used on a light bulb, it could make the light bulb brighter. If it was used on a fan, it could make the wind cooler. In this way, if it was used on one's fists would become heavier. If it was used on one's feet, one's speed and endurance would also increase. If it was used on one's body's defense would increase significantly. For Noah, this magic trick was extremely useful. As long as a large amount of magic was used, Noah's strength in all aspects would increase in a straight line. Therefore, although Noah did not pay attention to it at first, after being reminded by Yuzhu, he immediately thought of it. As for Runa, if it was used well, it could also be a super powerful magic trick. Therefore, regarding strengthen and Runa, Noah attached great importance to it, and whenever he had time, he would immerse himself in learning these two magic tricks. And on this night, a week later, when Noah and Aoko Auchi returned to the mansion after school, Yuzhu, who came down from upstairs, directly gave these words. "Get ready, we have work to do tonight." Chapter 317. The bleak cold wind swept through the entire land of Sanyi City with a whistling sound. At this time, 3 figures, big or small, slender or tall, slowly appeared in the cold wind and came to this empty park. First a forest, then a factory ruins, and now a park? Aoko walked at the front, as if telling herself that she had to move forward bravely. She scanned the entire park with a sharp gaze, and a hint of anger could be seen in her expression. How unscrupulous, aren't they afraid of being seen by unrelated people? In the end, this should be your fault, right? Noah, who was walking behind Yuzhu, glanced at the surroundings as he purposely smiled. Isn't setting up the fulcrum of Mayo City's barrier telling the enemy that they have to choose this place as the battlefield? Mayo City's barrier was set up by Aoko's grandfather, Yuzhu said in an indifferent tone. He purposely chose this place with a lot of people as the fulcrum point. It can't be helped that it turned into a battlefield. As long as one was a magician, they had to maintain the concealment of their magic. It was because of this that Aoko's grandfather purposely chose this place with a lot of people to set up the fulcrum point. This way, as long as the enemy was a magician, they would have to worry about whether the fulcrum point would be seen by ordinary people and expose the concealment of their magic. At the very least, it was impossible for the other party to come here during the day to carry out the work of a magician when there were so many people coming and going. At night, they would also have to be cautious and think of ways to set up a barrier to drive people away. In a large sense, it would waste a lot of time, which was very beneficial to the manager of Sanyo City. I'm just afraid that the enemy is a madman who doesn't care about the lives of ordinary people and can laugh as he wantonly kills. Noah said lightly, and then immediately changed the topic without giving Aoko and Yuzhu any time to answer. Are you sure you detected the reaction of magic here? Mayo City's barrier can only be deceived, there's no possibility of error. Yuzhu repeated expressionlessly, her pitch-black eyes looking straight ahead, as if she had already seen her opponent. The enemy is on the move, this is something that can be confirmed. Is that sneaky bastard starting to destroy the fulcrum again? Aoko frowned. Could it be another mannequin sent out to distract the enemy? I have the same question. Noah shrugged. If that's the case, then this foreign magician's wallet is quite full. For now, the automatons that were controlled by magicians and used in magic battles were more or less useless. In terms of performance, an ordinary automaton wasn't as powerful as a familiar. If one wanted to create an automaton that could be used in battle, the cost of the materials required would be a figure that would make ordinary magicians speechless. Therefore, in this world, if there were still puppeteers who used puppets as their main method of fighting, they would most likely be collecting antiques that were left behind from the past to the present to do battle. Of course, if that was the case, the price of purchasing an automaton was also very expensive. Ordinary magicians simply couldn't afford it. Previously, Noah and Yuzhu had encountered 2 men with a split mouth in the forest. On the night when Noah's true identity was discovered, he had also broken an automaton. In other words, the other party had already used 3 expensive antiques during this period of time. If this foreign magician still sent out a mannequin this time, then one could imagine how rich his wallet was. Regardless of whether it's the real person or the mannequin, the opponent this time is Aoko. Yuzhu glanced at Noah lightly. Your opponent is that fantasy breed. Yuzhu's words made the two people present react. Noah didn't care and turned his head away, but his gaze toward Aoko was more or less serious. Aoko looked calm on the surface, but hidden in the depths of her pale eyes was a stifling pressure that made it hard for others to breathe, telling others just how difficult it was for her to calm down. Yuzhu acted as if she didn't care about anything else and quietly retreated to the side. No one has ever said that only magicians who can kill are mature magicians. Noah and Aoko looked at each other. After a long while, Noah closed his eyes and said as if he didn't care about her at all. Don't be ashamed of being afraid of killing. It's never wrong to cherish life. No matter if it's yours or the enemy's. After leaving these words, Noah also retreated to Yuzhu's side, leaving the choice in Aoko's hands. It was obvious that Aoko and Yuzhu wanted to deal with this foreign magician as the real birth trial of the Aoko family's magician. Noah, on the other hand, scoffed at this so-called trial. Of course, Noah wouldn't pity the state of the universe and think that killing was wrong. For Noah, killing innocent people was indeed wrong, but for this guy who deserved to die, not killing him was a crime. However, whether to kill or not, at least it was his own decision. Aoko had an unyielding character and was good at moving forward bravely, but that didn't include forcing herself. Needless to say, letting Aoko kill was forcing her. It wasn't that Aoko wouldn't kill. If she really made up her mind, Aoko would definitely be able to do it. But Aoko didn't want to kill at all. Doing something against one's will, if that wasn't forcing oneself, then what was? If one had power but couldn't make decisions for oneself, then why did one have power? Just to reach the origin? That didn't make any sense. Noah had extraordinary magic power from the moment he was born. In order to not hurt the people around him, Noah constantly trained his magic power control. Later, he gradually mastered the high-level destruction spell, Crush, and made considerable progress in the other two worlds. All of this was to protect the people around him, to protect the worlds that asked him for help. Therefore, Noah felt that it was meaningful for him to become stronger, and that his life was very meaningful. Unlike the magicians of this world, who became stronger and had power, but had to force themselves to do things they didn't want to do. If that wasn't meaningless, then what was it? Therefore, although Noah didn't completely reject the magicians of this world, he didn't have a good impression of them. But unlike Noah, a pure magician like Yuzhu had a completely different opinion. Magicians were destined to go against their morals. Therefore, all human rules and regulations were enemies to magicians. Therefore, when Aoko was stunned by Noah's words, Yuzhu's voice slowly sounded. That's not like you. This sentence made Aoko finally make up her mind. Hesitation was not like Aoko at all. No matter what, since she had decided, she had to do it. This was Aoko. Seeing the determination in Aoko's eyes, Noah still didn't care and smiled, and turned his head away. At this point, it was Aoko's problem to choose her own future. After all, Noah was rather impressed by Aoko's perseverance and willpower. At that moment, Noah closed his eyes, and his sensing ability was fully activated in an instant, covering the largest range with him as the center. The next moment, Noah and Yuzhu raised their heads at the same time and said in unison, "They're coming." Aoko's body tensed up. At the same time, in the shadows around the park, black shadows quietly appeared. Click, 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 click. When the mechanical footsteps sounded and became more frequent, not only Aoko and Yuzhu, but even Noah was shocked. Click, 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 click. Amidst the increasingly frequent footsteps, the black shadows that resembled giant ants gradually surrounded them and were exposed under the moonlight. They were puppets. The puppets had no adornments on their bodies. Their skin was as cold as steel, and they were like the dolls in the clothing stores. They walked on all fours and surrounded them step by step. From the looks of it, there were at least 30 of these puppets that were surrounding them. In terms of the price of puppets, all of them added up to a sky-high price. Chapter 3:18. Clack, clack, clack. At some point, the sound of the mannequin's footsteps became more synchronized. Moreover, Noah and Yuju did not know if it was an illusion, but the small number of puppets in front of them, which could be converted into money, seemed to be directly targeting Ayoko. With Ayoko as the target, they surrounded her. Ayoko, who had been so resolute up until now had a dumbfounded look on her face. Even Yuju was slightly surprised. Seeing this, Noah sighed and said in annoyance, "This guy really has too much money. It seems that this foreign magician has so much money that he doesn't know where to spend it. He's throwing expensive automatons to their deaths one by one, and he even has a fantasy breed by his side. Is his target really Sano City?" Noah could not help but have such doubts. If this nouveau riche foreign magician's target was really the spirit vein, he could have directly bought a piece of spirit land from the magic association with his wealth. Why would he go through so much trouble to come here and seize Sanyo City? Although Sanyi City also had a spirit vein, it was a small place in the countryside. Those who would set their eyes on this place were usually third-rate magicians. It was really inconceivable that a magician with a fantasy breed and so many expensive dolls would set his eyes on this place. Ayoko obviously thought of this as well. She had a sincere expression of displeasure on her face, but her tone was quite calm. "Yuju." Ayoko Aozaki took a step back without a change in her expression. She stared at the army of dolls surrounding them as she spoke. "Where's Puppeteer himself?" "I'm not sure." Yoju's eyes flickered slightly. "There are too many puppets here, and the magic power has been disrupted. It's difficult to detect other magic power individuals." Ayoko clicked her tongue when she heard Yoju's words, while Noah still used his sensing ability to observe the surroundings. Only Noah's sensing ability was not restricted by magic power, and it directly scanned the surrounding environment. At this moment, Noah was surprised. Within the range of Noah's sensing ability, an aura appeared at the edge and slowly moved toward them. Noah recognized this aura. It was because he recognized it that Noah was so surprised. Yuju, who noticed Noah's strange expression, looked over with confusion in his eyes. "Yuju." Noah directly looked into Yoju's eyes and said, "Did you activate a barrier to repel people?" Yuju raised his eyebrows and did not speak. His black eyes stared at Noah, and a trace of dissatisfaction slowly appeared in his eyes. Although Yuju did not say anything, Noah understood Yoju's meaning. As a pure magician, it was impossible for Yuju not to consider this point, and had long since cast a barrier. In fact, within the range of Noah's sensing ability, he could indeed feel the barriers set up by Yuju. But even so, Noah could not help but be suspicious. "It's not that I doubt your ability." Noah frowned. "It's just that I noticed an ordinary person penetrating your barrier and coming here." "Ordinary person?" Yuju was stunned. "Ordinary person?" Ayoko, who had already activated her magic seal and was ready to attack at any time, also turned her head in surprise as a faint blue light swirled around her arm. "Kakaka." Just as Ayoko turned her head around, there was the sound of rapid movement of limbs. Immediately after, the three puppets leapt out from the army of puppets. Like fierce tigers hunting in the night, their bodies suddenly turned in midair and fiercely pounced in Ayoko's direction. Ayoko's expression changed, and almost reflexively raised her arm that was flickering with the light of magic engraving, and faced the incoming puppets. In the vibration of the air, a precise geometric pattern appeared in front of Ayoko's palm and suddenly flashed. Bang 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 bang. Like a turret aimed at the enemy, the blue light that turned into cannonballs burst out from the mysterious spell formation. Carrying a blinding phosphorescence, the cannonballs crossed the space and heavily fell on the attacking puppets. Bang 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 bang. Accompanied by the sound of explosions, blue flames bloomed from the puppets that jumped up and pounced on Ayoko. While stirring up a burst of intense light, the blue flames were like heavy hammers, directly blasting the attacking puppets back into the puppet army. Ka-ka-ka-ka. As if receiving a signal, all the hair-raising, naked puppets in front of Ayoko shot out like bullets with their limbs stretched, and amidst the mechanical ka-ka sound, they violently attacked Ayoko's direction. The number of the automaton puppet army was at least 30. The maximum number of magic bullets that Aoko could shoot in a day was about 30, and she couldn't shoot all of them at once. At most, she could shoot 4 at a time. Therefore, when the army of puppets swarmed towards her like a swarm of bees, Aoko only had time to raise her hand, which was covered with a glowing spell formation. She didn't even have time to replenish the number of magic bullets before the army of puppets arrived in front of her. Click. A voice rang out behind Aoko, accompanied by a dense phosphorescent light that illuminated every corner of the surroundings. Cast, projection. As soon as he said that, the blue phosphorescent light turned into a resplendent beam of light. Like a meteor flashing through the night sky, it brushed past Aoko's side, causing half of her body to heat up. Her skin turned red from the friction. Then, the meteor-like beam of light swept through the swarming puppet army. Bang! A dazzling light exploded. A strong gust of wind spread. The puppets in the torrent of magic power seemed to be directly vaporized. They suddenly burst into flames and turned into stinking smoke, rising into the air and dissipating with the wind. After a while, the light and wind disappeared at the same time, leaving behind a scorched earth that seemed to have been burned by flames, and scattered on the ground, leaving behind some broken limbs and broken bones of the puppets. That scene was extremely frightening. Whether it was Aoko or Yuju, both of them looked at Noah with an incredulous expression as he raised his hand in front of him that was flickering with phosphorescence. This was especially true for Aoko. Recalling the beam of light that had formed a magic bullet that was like a meteor, she looked at Noah as if she had seen a ghost. If she had restrained her magic power and had enough time to chant, Aoko could have used the magic bullet just now. However, not only did it require the assistance of the magic seal, but it also required the consumption of all the magic power in the body to obtain the magic bullet of that scale. Now, this trump card that Aoko could only use once, not only did Noah casually use it, but he also looked relaxed, as if he didn't consume any magic power at all. This guy, is he really a monster? Don't be in a daze. Noah, who put down his hand, looked at Aoko and Yoju's stunned expression and sighed in a deep voice. Even if I make a move, the result is still too late. Saying such a sentence, Noah turned sideways and looked at the entrance of the park. Aoko and Yuju, who looked at the front through Noah's body, finally saw it. At the entrance of the park, a figure stood there. He was wearing the student uniform of Miyamoto High School, with messy hair, a somewhat thin figure, and a somewhat simple and honest expression. However, that simple and honest face of his was completely dumbfounded at this very moment. The person who came was the recently transferred student of Miyamoto High School, Shizuka Kusanagi. Yoju's pitch-black eyes suddenly focused, and a flame-like magic power rose from his body. Aoko sucked in a breath of cold air, and immediately understood. The transfer student in front of her, who came from the mountains, saw everything that just happened. As an ordinary person, he witnessed the miracle of a magician. You guys? Shizuka Kusajikuro seemed to be unable to recover from the scene that he saw. Looking at the burning remains of the puppets and the broken limbs on the ground, he couldn't help but take a step back. The whole place was dead silent. Chapter 319. Separated by less than 10 meters, Noah, Aoko, and Yuju looked at Shizuka Kusanagi and couldn't say anything for a while. To be precise, it should be said that Noah remained silent and observed the situation. Aoko and Shizuka Kusanagi were really speechless because of the sudden situation in front of them. The reason why Shizuka Kusanagi couldn't say anything was simple. It was believed that anyone who saw the broken limbs and bones in front of them, the charred marks on the ground, and the scene of the slowly burning puppets that still maintained the shape of a human, would be speechless. It was better to say that if it wasn't because it was too shocking, Shizuka Kusanagi would have run away at this time. The reason why Aoko couldn't say anything was also very simple. Just because the thing that absolutely couldn't be discovered was not only discovered, but also discovered by her own schoolmate, this made Aoko somewhat unable to react. until the cold voice of Yuju, who was closely staring at Shizuka Kusanagi and exuding a terrifying magical aura, the dead silence of the scene was cleanly broken. Ayoko! Ayoko finally recovered. Looking at Shizuka Kusanagi's eyes became cruel. Facing Shizuka Kusanagi, who was still in a daze, the magic seal on Ayoko's arm was smoothly operated to the extreme in the driving sound like an engine, blooming a dazzling phosphorescent light. Under the phosphorescent light, Ayoko's cold face was exposed in front of Shizuka Kusanagi. "You have bad luck, Shizuka Kusanagi." Shizuka Kusanagi, who was awakened by the inhuman phenomenon of Ayoko, retreated step by step, and finally, couldn't help but stagger, and ran away like crazy. Ayoko's mouth evoked a smile that was unknown whether it was sincere or hypocritical, stepped forward, and did not hesitate to chase. Looking at this scene, Yuju acted as if nothing had happened and stood there quietly. Noah was the only one who narrowed his eyes as he watched Ayoko disappear around the corner of the park and head toward the main road. Just as he was about to chase after her, an unfamiliar presence appeared within the range of his sensory ability. Noah, who had just taken a step forward, narrowed his eyes. This was because this aura that appeared in the range of her senses not only didn't feel like a living person at all, but it also had a trace of magic power. It was approaching Ayoko at an astonishing speed. Not good. As soon as he finished speaking, "Kacha!" A sound that sounded like something being split apart rang out from the road outside the park. Bang! A burst of scarlet magic power and a dull collision sound echoed in the air at the same time. Beep, beep, beep. Scarlet electric sparks blossomed in the air. Ah! Ayoko's painful wail also rushed into the sky. While Yuju was startled, Noah had already rushed out. A pop sound came from his body, and a vigorous power instantly filled his body. At this moment, Noah chose to release all the power under limit. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Noah's figure turned into an afterimage and rushed out like a gust of wind. When Noah appeared again, he was already at the place where the scarlet electric arcs flashed and Ayoko's sorrowful cry resounded. Then Noah saw it. He saw Ayoko fly into the air, like a thrown garbage, and fall to the ground. Bang! Noah, who appeared under Ayoko, stretched out his hand and caught the falling Ayoko into his arms. The weight that was added because of the free fall was directly shaken off by Noah's arm. With a bend of Noah's arm, it was completely removed. Ayoko Aozaki's seemingly tall and slender body actually displayed an excessively light weight, which was completely borne by Noah. Ugh! Ayoko, who fell into Noah's arms, was a little pale and let out a muffled groan. Noah, who was holding Ayoko, slowly raised his head. His eyes gradually turned into a cold light and looked at the front of the road. There, a mechanical cold arm that looked exactly like a human arm, but was split into countless segments and directly extended like a whip. It slowly retracted, and with a kacha-kacha sound, it reassembled. The owner of this arm was a puppet. It was very similar to the previous puppet, but its face was almost exactly the same as Ayoko's, and even its hair was the same. Next to the puppet, Shizuka Kusajikuro had fainted and fell to the ground unconscious. Perhaps, in the process of fleeing, Shizuka Kusajikuro directly hit the puppet, and like Ayoko, he was attacked by the puppet. Or rather, it was very likely that the controller of this puppet opened a hole in the wizardry barrier, and led Shizuka Kusajikuro in, and attracted the attention of Noah and the others. Shizuka Kusajikuro led Ayoko out, and maybe killed her alone. Thinking of this possibility, Noah's expression also sank. "I've been tricked." Kachikata. Not knowing if it heard Noah's voice, the puppet that looked like Ayoko raised its hand mechanically and clumsily, and pointed in the direction of Noah. The next moment, the puppet's arm once again split and stretched out like a whip, like an arrow connected to the fist and countless joints, and in the sharp sound, it shot in the direction of Noah. Unfortunately, if it was against Noah in his normal state, this puppet could still jump a few times. But against Noah, who had released all his power, this was destined to be the last attack in the life of this puppet. The mechanical arm connected to the fist directly fell on the position where Noah was a second ago, and the ground there was penetrated. Pada. With such a light landing sound, Noah, who was holding Aoko Aoyagi, seemed to descend from the sky. His toes touched the ground, and he landed on the ground, appearing in front of the puppet. The puppet seemed to be unable to understand the situation in front of it, and tilted its head. Pa. At this moment, Noah stretched out a hand and put it on the puppet's shoulder. A dazzling white light burst out from Noah's hand and covered the puppet's entire body. Bang! In the white light, the puppet's body seemed to be evenly cut into pieces. First, it split, and then, in a loud explosion, it directly shattered and turned into powder in the air. However, the powder was purple. Aoko, who breathed in a little purple powder, let out a muffled groan. Noah, who was aware of this, revealed a hint of surprise. Poison powder? There was poison hidden in the puppet's body. The magician hiding in the dark not only wanted to trick Aoko, but he also wanted to trick Noah. This made Noah's face turn ugly. However, Noah's body had 3 major constitutions. One of the 3 major constitutions was to expel all negative forces that affected the body. This included poison. Therefore, even if he was tricked, Noah was still unaffected. Of course, Noah was not affected, but it did not mean that others were not affected. Another extremely soft groan was heard. That was the sound of Yuju, who finally arrived at the scene. Noah quickly called out, "Hold your breath. There's poison in the air." Without Noah's reminder, Yuju, who was an expert in fairy tale-themed curses and pharmacology, accidentally breathed in a part of the poison, immediately held her breath. But Yuju still breathed in some poison. Her face was slightly pale as she sat on the ground, clutching her chest, and looked like she was enduring the pain. In the end, except for Noah, Aoko, and Yuju were all poisoned. Perhaps, tonight's operation was a trap. Noah suppressed the surging emotions in his heart, regained his calm, carried Aoko, and quickly came to Yuju's side, and hugged Yuju in his arms. Yuju, who was in Noah's arms, grabbed Noah's arm and said weakly, "The other fulcrum was just eliminated, this is just a trap." Sure enough. Holding Aoko in one hand and Yuju in the other, Noah looked at Shizuka Kusanagi on the ground in front of him and took a deep breath. Tonight's matter, I will remember. Chapter 320. In the pitch-black night, the manor house on the hill lit up, illuminating the surrounding wasteland. After turning on the lights, Noah placed the 2 girls in his arms on the sofa. Looking at the pale faces of Aoko and Yuju, he stood up and walked to the middle of the living room. Wang! A dazzling golden light rose from Noah's body, covering the surrounding lights that were abnormally dim in comparison and filling the entire living room. Under the dazzling golden light, a scabbard quietly appeared. Noah grasped it in his hand and raised it high above his head. Wang! Suddenly, with the golden scabbard as the source, an intense dazzling light soared and covered everything in the living room. Under the dazzling light, Aoko's pale face gradually improved and regained a bit of color, making her face that was previously filled with pain look a lot more relaxed. The scabbard named Avalon originally had an extremely powerful healing ability. As long as it was not a fatal injury, and its owner could provide it with sufficient magic power, then Avalon would definitely be able to completely heal the person's injuries. The only difference was how long it would take. Otherwise, Avalon would not be called a mobile stronghold. Under the healing of Avalon, the wounds on Aoko's body were negligible, and it didn't take much effort to heal them all. Undoubtedly, it was such a tyrannical treatment, but Aoko's complexion did not improve after recovering to a certain extent, as if the treatment of Avalon was no longer effective. On the other side, Yoju's pale face, bathed in the light of Avalon, did not improve at all. Her expression was still the same, with a bit of pain. Seeing this scene, Noah was not surprised at all and bitterly smiled. Sure enough, Avalon can only heal injuries and not detoxify poison? This has nothing to do with Avalon. Yuju, who was lying on the sofa, forced herself to make a weak sound. The poison dissolved after entering our body. Without the poison, even if your Avalon could detoxify the poison, it would not be effective. Hearing this, Noah was slightly startled. The light of Avalon in his hand gradually converged and turned into a stream of light, once again entering Noah's body. You said the poison is gone? Coming to the sofa where Yuju was lying, Noah, who was kneeling on one knee, looked at Yuju's still pale face and suspiciously asked, "Since the poison is gone, what's going on with your current situation?" "That is the neurotoxin used to block the magic circuit." The answer to Noah was not from Yuju, but from the sofa on the other side of the sofa, with the same weak but strong voice. Ayoko, who had already woken up, seemed unwilling to let others see her weak appearance. Ignoring her still weak body, she propped herself up and leaned against the back of the sofa as if she had lost the last bit of her strength, laughing bitterly. "Although I don't know what kind of poison it is, I can feel that my magic circuit has been completely blocked. Magic can't flow at all of it is squeezed on the circuit. If this continues, our magic won't be able to flow again, right?" "Is the magic power blocked?" Noah muttered to himself as he looked at Yuju. "Can it be detoxified?" After the poison entered our body, it directly blocked our magic circuit, and then it was digested. Yuju clutched her chest. A rare trace of annoyance appeared in her voice. "There is no poison at all, then don't talk about detoxifying it." "Yuju, what should we do?" Ayoko spoke with the same cold tone as before, as if there was nothing wrong with her body. "If this continues, we will be directly eliminated from this battle, right?" Magic was blocked and unable to flow, which meant that Yuju and Ayoko couldn't use magic at all. Even if their strength was slowly recovering, their body was also recovering little by little. If they couldn't use magic, then next, if the magician who tricked them continued to attack the rest of the boundary fulcrum, Ayoko and Yuju wouldn't be able to go out and face the enemy. "Actually treating me like an idiot, I will never forgive that guy. If I don't teach him a lesson, I won't give up." Ayoko said in her own voice. Even if it was slightly weak, it was full of determination. "Moreover, I don't want to be sold by those people in the church." Hatian Church was nominally assisting Ayoko and Yuju. It seemed like this, but in fact, Hatian Church only needed to assist the manager of Sanyo City's spiritual vein, not Ayoko and Yuju. If they found that Ayoko and Yuju had no way to win the battle against the foreign magician, the church would not hesitate to abandon Ayoko and Yuju and start to assist the future manager of the spiritual vein, right? Yuju was naturally aware of this point. After a moment of silence, she raised her pale little face. "Now, the magic in our body can't flow again because it was blocked too much before, and now it's all squeezed together and can't be activated. Does that mean our magic circuit is in a traffic jam?" Ayoko looked at Yuju. "What's the solution? Inject magic into the magic circuit?" Noah, who had been silent, suddenly said, "If it doesn't move, add new power to push it, right?" Yuju slowly nodded, making Ayoko's face show an angry expression. "We can't use any magic at all now. How can we push the magic circuit?" Yuju nodded again, but this time more or less with a little helplessness. On the side, Noah, who was listening to the conversation between Yuju and Ayoko, fell into silence. If one observed carefully, one would find that Noah's face showed hesitation and an extremely awkward and unnatural expression. After Yuju proposed the plan, Noah remembered a book he read in Ayoko's study. That book recorded a method to inject magic into others. However, that method, no matter who thought of it, would hesitate, and Noah was full of awkwardness and hesitation. Ayoko, who inadvertently saw Noah's performance, raised the corner of her eyes and directly said, "Did you think of a way?" Yuju also turned her head and looked at Noah. Under the gaze of the two girls, Noah's expression became more and more awkward, and after a while, he asked with a wry smile, "Do you really want to recover?" "Nonsense." Ayoko gritted her teeth and said, "I must return all the suffering I suffered today to that guy who hides his head and shows his tail. I don't like others to rob me." Yuju continued Aoko's words and looked at Noah. No matter who it is. Hearing this, Noah's awkwardness turned into hesitation, and finally he let out an unprecedentedly long sigh. This is what you said, don't regret it. After that, Noah stood up and directly sat on the side of Yuju's sofa. He stretched out his hand and gently picked up Yuju, who was lying weakly on the sofa. There was no then. Maintaining the posture of holding Yuju, Noah's body was slightly stiff, and the expression on his face kept changing. It was still alternating between awkwardness and hesitation, but more of it was hesitation. There was no way. This method was also a challenge for Noah. After all, Noah didn't even try it. However, when he thought about how he was careless and directly destroyed the puppet, which caused Aoko and Yuju to be poisoned, Noah's heart became ruthless. Forget it, if I die, then I die. On the other side, Yuju's eyebrows were deeply furrowed, as if she was disgusted by others touching her. But when Yuju wanted to make a sound, what happened next made Yuju unable to make a sound. This was not only a psychological factor, but also a physical one. After a moment of hesitation, Noah, who was holding Yuju, directly bent down and blocked Yuju's lips. And the thing that blocked Yuju's lips was Noah's lips. Yuju's black hole-like pupils instantly shrank to the smallest in history. Aoko stood up in a daze. Chapter 321. Mana was basically energy that could only be maintained within the magician's body. Once it was released to the outside world, it would immediately turn back into life force and spread into the originator. However, a magician's body fluid was extremely easy to contain mana. Even if it left the body and was released to the outside world, it could still be temporarily preserved and maintain mana. Thus, if one could directly drink a magician's body fluid, one could also achieve the goal of replenishing mana. It was said that magicians who were worried about money would even sell their body fluid to the Magic Association in exchange for large amounts of money. Aoko Aozaki and Yuju both required external magic power to reactivate their magic circuits. As long as Noah could pass his mana to Aoko and Yuju, the magic circuit of the two girls could be reactivated. Originally, Noah wanted to let Aoko and Yuju drink his blood to replenish their mana, but after careful consideration he gave up on that idea. Noah's body was not an ordinary body. Noah's body had 3 extremely special constitutions. In the world of Pitch Black Bullet, blood could affect the body of the cursed child to a certain extent. In this way, Noah was not sure if his blood would have some effect on the magicians of this world. If it was a good effect, then it would be fine. But if it was a bad effect, then it would be too late to say anything. Thus, after a mental struggle, Noah still chose to use his saliva. Yuju, whose lips were directly covered by Noah, let out a whimper. Her heart, which was not easily disturbed, was completely disrupted by Noah's actions. Especially when she sensed that Noah had pried open her lips and her tongue had been captured by the tongue of this man who was having the most intimate contact with her in history, Yuju started to struggle in a panic. Her slender arms kept pushing Noah's shoulders. And Noah, who had already thrown caution to the wind, did not care about Yuju's struggles. For a penny, for a pound, for a pound, for a pound, he rolled up Yuju's small tongue and fiercely entangled it. Noah did not know that when he was a child, Mira and Lisanna, those 2 little girls, had already stolen his lips. Thus, in Noah's memory, this was definitely Noah's first kiss. Feeling the soft and small lips pressed against his own, as well as Yuju's panicked tongue continuously attacking him, Noah felt as if he had been electrocuted, and his mind was in chaos. Even Noah, who was good at controlling his emotions, was like this, let alone Yuju. Yuju's heart was already completely occupied by panic, even her mind was blank. She only subconsciously used her arms to press on Noah's shoulders, while whimpering and pushing. Unfortunately, Yuju's strength was no different from nothing for Noah. Furthermore, Noah didn't forget about the important matter at hand. He forcefully suppressed the agitation in his heart and his longing for those soft lips and tongue, allowing his magic to pass through his lips and into Yuju's body. Not long after, Yoju's rapid and weak breathing reverberated in the air, unable to be suppressed, and began to reverberate in the living room. Looking at Noah, who was roughly kissing Yuju in front of her eyes, with her eyes tightly closed, and her strength to struggle became weaker and weaker. Her pale cheeks gradually flushed red. Aoko felt as if someone had knocked her on the head, and she did not recover for a long time. The heavens pity her. On the surface, Aoko looked like a big sister, but she did not even have the experience of holding hands with a boy, let alone kissing, or even watching others kiss. What's more, the one being kissed in front of him was not someone else, but a pure-blooded witch, a pure-blooded magician. Hidden in her petite body was a power that made countless magicians exclaim in admiration, Juyuan Temple Pearls. One could imagine the impact Aoko felt. After an unknown amount of time, Noah and Yoju's lips finally parted. Ping! When Noah subconsciously let go of her hand, Yuju's body directly collapsed onto the sofa. Her black hole-like eyes couldn't help but slacken. She panted rapidly as if she was out of oxygen, and her chest heaved up and down. Not to mention Yuju, even Noah was slightly panting. Looking at Yuju, who collapsed on the sofa, his heart beat faster and faster, and his heart was filled with disbelief. He could not believe that he had actually done such a thing. Fortunately, Noah did not forget that he still had another patient. At that moment, Noah turned his head and stared at Aoko with a crazy gaze, as if he was about to jump off a cliff. Aoko's heart suddenly jumped, and she woke up with a start. Before she had time to question Noah, Aoko's heart was filled with a strong sense of foreboding. This ominous premonition made Aoko panic like never before. She shouted at Noah, trying to put up a strong front but feeling weak at heart. "What do you want to do?" Being stared at by Aoko's vigilant and panicked eyes, Noah's heart could not help but beat like a drum. But since he had even kissed the pure-blooded witch Yuju, what qualifications did this bad-tempered trainee magician in front of him have to make him back out? With this thought in mind, Noah walked over to Aoko and tried to persuade her. It was an expression and posture that showed that he was really going to throw caution to the wind. "Who told you to come over?" In a panic, Aoko mercilessly threw a punch. However, Aoko had already consumed a lot of physical strength due to her injury and poisoning. Now that her magic circuit was also blocked, her recovery ability was extremely weak. This soft punch did not have any deterrence at all. But Noah stretched out his hand and took Aoko's soft punch with his palm. Then he turned around and grabbed Aoko's fist. With a forceful pull, he pulled the flustered Aoko into his arms. Without giving Aoko a chance to retaliate, Noah fiercely covered Aoko's mouth. Aoko's depressed and panicked whimper turned into an echo, and together with the sound of alternating lips and tongues, it kept lingering in the entire living room. For a long time, it did not stop. When he walked out of the living room, Noah felt that his body was floating. In the living room behind him, the panting of Yuju and Aoko still did not stop. If someone saw Noah walking out of a room with the panting of a girl in a floating state, they would definitely think that it was a romantic scene. In fact, what Noah had done was much better than what she had imagined. After all, Noah did not take advantage of the situation. Although he was almost captured by the feeling that he had never experienced before, he still controlled it. After transferring enough magical power to Aoko and Yuju, he immediately stopped what he was doing and left the living room. If he continued to stay there, Noah could not guarantee that Aoko and Yuju, who had recovered, would not be mad at him. Phew! Noah let out a heavy sigh of relief. Pressing his chest, he smiled embarrassedly. "It's not a big deal." That feeling. After saying this sentence, which sounded like he had given up, Noah shook his head, walked into the hall of the mansion, and looked in the direction of the entrance. On the ground of the entrance, a person was lying there. Impressively, it was Shizuka Kusajikuro. While bringing back Aoko and Yuju, Noah also brought back Wild, who was unlucky. He didn't know if it was because she was used by that foreign magician to ignore Yoju's barrier and break into the park. Whether or not he was used, Shizuka Kusajikuro witnessed the scene of the magician using magic, which violated the magician's concealment principle. Perhaps, even if Noah let Shizuka Kusajikuro go, Aoko, Yuju, and even the foreign magician who might have used him would chase after him to kill him. Since that was the case, it was better to bring Shizuka Kusajikuro back and think of a way to solve this problem. Of course, Noah did not think of killing Shizuka Kusajikuro. He still had a good impression of this simple young man. Thinking of this, Noah came in front of Shizuka Kusajikuro, squatted down, and patted his back. "You were unlucky to break into the park, but you were lucky to have met me." After that, Noah carried Shizuka Kusajikuro on his back and brought him to the second floor to his room. The night passed quietly. Chapter 322. His fuzzy consciousness gradually returned, making Shizuoka Kusunagi's brain, which was not very bright, work smoothly. His whole body was soft, and it was difficult to raise his strength. If it was an ordinary person at this time, he was afraid that he could only make his eyelids move, and not move at all. However, for Shizuoka Kusunagi, this level was still bearable. After all, in the mountains where he originally lived, Shizuoka Kusunagi never lacked self-exercise. Regardless of will and strength, in terms of control of the body, in theory, Shizuoka Kusunagi would not lose to anyone. Therefore, even if there was only a little strength, Shizuoka Kusunagi successfully instilled it into his body. What Shizuoka Kusunagi needed to do was to open his eyes. The originally dark vision became bright as he opened his eyes. What was imprinted in Shizuoka Kusunagi's eyes was an unfamiliar ceiling and room. Before Shizuoka Kusunagi could understand the current situation, a voice sounded from his side and passed into his ears. "Are you awake?" Hearing this voice, Shizuoka Kusunagi instantly woke up and turned his head reflexively, looking at the source of the voice. What appeared in front of Shizuoka Kusunagi was sitting on an ancient but elegant chair, holding a thick book in his hand, looking at him with a smile. "You actually woke up in one night. You're more capable than I thought." Hearing this familiar voice, looking at that familiar face, all the memories that were sleeping in Shizuoka Kusunagi's mind suddenly came back. Even if the brain was not very bright, Shizuoka Kusunagi still had a way to remember simple things. Therefore, Shizuoka Kusunagi remembered that the person in front of him was a student of the same school as him. And along with this memory, everything that had happened last night also returned. In the park where the cold wind was howling, the ground was scorched black as if it had been burned, and there were broken limbs and slowly burning human bodies everywhere. The person in front of him was standing in the middle of that hellish scene. Shizuoka Kusunagi's whole body shook, and suddenly jumped up from the bed. Shizuoka Kusunagi's first reaction was to escape. Wang! However, just as he sat up, a mysterious rune suddenly appeared in front of his chest, blooming with a faint light, illuminating his whole body. The moment this rune appeared, Shizuoka Kusukajuru's body stiffened, and he could no longer move. This made Shizuoka Kusunagi's eyes widen, and for a moment, he lost all reaction. "I knew your first reaction would be this." Without any surprise, Noah closed the book in his hand and looked at Shizuoka Kusunagi calmly. "You don't have to be afraid. Although your current situation can't make you feel at ease, you're still safe in my sight. So, if you want to escape, don't blame me for not warning you. Once you're out of my sight, I won't be so idle as to specially protect you." After saying that, Noah stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. The rune that appeared in front of Shizuchi Kusujuru's chest disappeared like flying ash. Seeing such a miracle, Shizuka Kusakuro touched his chest with a strange expression, and then sighed sincerely. "So powerful." Hearing this, Noah was startled, and his expression more or less carried some surprise. The rune just now was actually one of the elementary uses of the rune that Noah recently learned. The so-called rune refers to the ancient text that was circulated in ancient Northern Europe. This was a symbol of sacred text, and each text contained a unique power. If they were written with magic, then the power of the text could be awakened. The rune that just froze Shizuka Kusakuro was a rune that had a binding effect. It was a rune that could only be used to simply freeze the body of others. The effect on magicians was not very big, because it would be scattered by the magic flowing in the magic circuit. It would be better to say that the rune that Noah learned so far was basically elementary, and most of them were simple runes that did not have much effect on ordinary magicians. It could be regarded as an elementary rune. There was no other way. Although the rune was extensive and profound, Aoko's study room had elementary magic. If Noah wanted to learn advanced rune, then he would have to find another way. However, this elementary rune was already very magical for ordinary people, and it was enough to make ordinary people stunned. But although Shizuka Kusakuro's face was filled with emotion and surprise, there was no shock at all. This made Noah curious. Immediately, Noah directly asked, "Aren't you afraid?" "Afraid?" Shizuka Kusakuro was puzzled from the bottom of his heart. "But why?" Noah laughed. Just as he was about to explain, he suddenly remembered Shizuka Kusakuro's background. Shizuka Kusakuro grew up in the mountains, and there was no electricity in his previous life. He was very surprised when he saw the school. This made Itamaru, who was in the same class as Noah, feel more than once that life was unimaginable. Then, for Shizuka Kusakuro, life in the city was also unimaginable, right? The life of a magician was even more so, wasn't it? Then, for Shizuka Kusakuro, what was magic? I say, Shizuka Kusakuro. Noah had a guess. Don't tell me you think that the people in the city can suddenly bind your body and make you unable to move? Shizuka Kusakuro was stunned. Isn't that so? This time, Noah understood, and he did not know whether to laugh or cry. Forget it, it is very troublesome to explain it to you, so I will let the owner of this mansion explain it to you. With that, Noah stood up, picked up the book and turned around. Follow me. When Noah came to the living room, Aoko Aozaki and Yuju seemed to have just finished their breakfast and were sitting on the sofa in the living room, sipping black tea. As soon as Noah entered the living room, Aoko Aozaki and Yuju's eyes were fixed on him. Noah could clearly see the emotions in Aoko Aozaki and Yuju's beautiful eyes. Aoko Aozaki's eyes first had a touch of shame, and then it was all replaced by anger. Yuju was indifferent, and there was only indifference from beginning to end. Being stared at by those resentful and indifferent eyes, even Noah couldn't help but rub his nose uncomfortably and look away awkwardly. So what if she was a magician? Being forcefully kissed by the opposite sex, except for those magicians who were really mentally and morally abnormal, as long as she was a woman, she would care, right? Although in his heart he told himself that it was only detoxification, Noah could not remain calm and immediately wanted to turn around and run. Fortunately, Noah's face was not that thin. Under the gaze of the two girls, he shrugged and asked as if nothing had happened. Your magic power should have recovered, right? Hearing this, Yoju's eyes became even colder, and Aoko Aozaki's eyes twitched. After taking a deep breath, she revealed a sweet smile. You still dare to ask? In other words, in your hearts, you are still unsatisfied? Noah pretended to be helpless and said, Before that, I asked you if you really wanted to recover. I also told you not to regret it. Anyway, you didn't want to fall in love. Instead of being an old virgin for the rest of your life, why don't you let me, your temporary cohabitant, take advantage of you? This time, not to mention Aoko Aozaki, even Yoju's eyes showed a trace of anger. Of course, the two girls did not know that Noah himself was deliberately making fun of them to hide his inner feelings. After all, that was the first kiss in Noah's memory, wasn't it? Facing Aoko Aozaki and Yoju's murderous gaze, Noah's face was calm. In addition, even if you have any thoughts now, you should wait until later. Now, it's not too late to solve the problem in front of you. After saying this, Noah turned around. Behind Noah, outside the living room, Shizuchi Kusanagi and Yuju entered the vision of Aoko Aozaki and Yuju. Seeing Shizuchi Kusanagi standing outside the door, Aoko Aozaki and Yuju were stunned for a moment. After they reacted, their expressions suddenly became serious. Chapter 323. In the living room, an oppressive silence began to fill the air. Ouchie! On the other hand, Shizuka Kusajikuro seemed to have just noticed Aoko and greeted her. "Why are you here?" Looking at Shizukiro's sincere and honest smile, Aochi Aoko really wanted to ask him what his brain was made of. Undoubtedly, he ran away in front of everyone last night, but now he acted as if nothing had happened. Aochi Aoko really couldn't guess what Shizukiro was thinking. At this time, Yuju directly got up from the sofa and didn't pay attention to Shizukiro. Instead, she stared at Noah. In her dark eyes, there was a strong fluctuation that even when Noah kissed her. In the next moment, Yoju's slightly angry and low voice faintly sounded. "Why did you bring people into my house without permission?" Hearing this sentence, Shizuka Kusajikuro was completely confused, while Aoko Aozaki cast the same questioning gaze at Noah. Regardless of the problem with Shizukiro, Noah bringing outsiders into Yoju's mansion seemed simple, but for Yuju, this could develop into an absolutely unforgivable thing. No matter what, this mansion was Yoju's most precious existence, and it was left behind by Yoju's deceased father. Noah naturally understood this point, and the little bit of awkwardness in his heart toward Yuju disappeared. He returned to his usual calmness, and looked at Yoju's eyes that contained strong emotions. "You didn't say that I can't bring people in, right?" Yuju didn't speak and didn't move her eyes away. She closely stared at Noah, making the surrounding atmosphere seem oppressive. "Okay, Yuju, now is not the time to ask who is right and who is wrong. Noah is right, you really didn't say that you can't bring people in." Aochi Aoko, who couldn't stand this oppressive atmosphere, chose to be the intermediary. Moreover, before today, Noah has never brought outsiders in. Today, he brought people that we need to deal with. Isn't it better not to pursue this matter in this place? Yuju still didn't speak, but the strong fluctuation in her eyes slowly calmed down. She glanced at Shizukiro, who was at a loss, and the coldness in her eyes almost froze people, making Shizukiro couldn't help but take a step back. It seemed that Yoju's helplessness and anger toward Noah were all transferred to Shizukiro. After Yuju sat down, Aochi Aoko also calmed down, stood up, and stared at Shizukiro as if she wanted to see through him. "That's good too. It saves me the trouble of finding you and getting rid of you." "Find me?" Shizuka Kusajikuro didn't seem to understand the meaning of Aoko's words, but he could feel the oppressive atmosphere from Aoko's body and the air around her that made it hard for him to breathe. Things were a bit bad. "As you can see, Shizukiro." On the side, Noah made his calm voice at the right time. "The two people here want to kill you." "Kill?" Shizukiro finally understood what was wrong, and he stepped back again and again. Compared to Shizukiro, Aochi Aoko seemed to want to step forward step by step, and the momentum on her body and the expression on her face became more and more intense. Although he didn't know what was going on, his intuition told him that the situation was very bad. Suppressing the subconscious impulse to escape, Shizukiro moved toward the direction of Noah. Seeing this scene, Noah couldn't help but laugh. Aoko Aozaki even stopped and looked straight at Shizuka Kusanagi. "You don't want to escape?" Shizukiro shook his head and said so. "I want to escape, but I don't think I can escape from you." "Is that so?" Aochi Aoko smiled happily, but there was no smile in her eyes. "You mean you want to die?" "I don't want to die yet," Shizukiro said in a very sincere tone. "So, I can only listen to Noah and let him protect me." "Noah? Protect you?" Aochi Aoko looked at Noah, and when she found that Noah didn't refute, her face sank. Sitting on the sofa, Yu, who originally wanted to stay out of this, raised her head and looked at Noah. "You want to protect him?" "At least, I don't want him to die." Noah's expression didn't change, and he said indifferently, "Don't apply your magician's rules to me. I'm not a magician. Didn't you already learn magic? Then you can be considered a magician, right?" Aochi Aoko's expression gradually became unfriendly. "Do you want to attract the Magic Association's crusade?" The essence of magic was to hide, and any magician had to hide the mystery of magic. If this sentence was originally a duty, then the existence of the Magic Association turned this duty into a real law. If any magician exposed the mystery of magic and didn't deal with the aftermath, then for the sake of the entire magician community, the Magic Association would definitely send people to suppress them. At least, on the surface, the Magic Association made this rule. And previously, it was said that the more people knew about magic, the less mysterious it would become. Therefore, even if the Magic Association was excluded, for the sake of the inheritance of magic, as a magician, Aochi Aoko and Yuju wouldn't allow Noah to protect Shizukairo. Unless, Noah wanted to start a war with Aochi Aoko and Yuju. I said, I'm not a magician, at least I won't become the kind of magician you want me to be. Noah's dark eyes swept across Aochi Aoko and Yuju. If the Magic Association crusade against me, then I will treat it as an enemy and eliminate it. Aochi Aoko and Yuju's expression showed a trace of shock for a moment. Eliminate? Eliminate the Magic Association? Does this mean that he wants to become an enemy of all magicians in the world of magicians? Is this person stupid? Are you serious? Aochi Aoko pointed at Shizukairo with a face full of disbelief. You want to become an enemy of all magicians for this irrelevant guy? I only do what I like. Noah curled his lips and smiled. It has nothing to do with benefits, it's just a good or bad mood. Anyway, I don't hate Shizukairo, classmate, so it's not a big deal to help her. Aochi Aoko was speechless, and Yuju, who had been watching Noah, also had a dark look in her eyes. So, you want to become an enemy of us for this guy? Not to that extent. Noah crossed his arms, first looked at Aochi Aoko, then at Yuju. I remember that there is a library in the mansion, right? Yuju's beautiful eyebrows slowly tightened. What do you want to do? Aren't you worried that the existence of magic will be leaked from this guy's mouth? Noah turned his head and looked at Shizuka Kuzukadru, who was at a loss for words, and sighed. Then, if I erase all his memories from last night until today, then there should be no problem, right? Erase his memories? Aochi Aoko and Yuju suddenly looked at each other and pondered. Shizukairo also looked at Noah with some surprise, but in exchange, he only got a glare from Noah. If you don't erase his memories, he will die, and I can't protect you forever. Shizukairo, classmate, I believe that you know which choice is better. This time, Shizukairo obediently closed his mouth and didn't say anything. I've been learning runa recently, and I've already learned all the basic runa in the president's study. Noah looked at Yuju. There should be more advanced runa in the library, right? There should also be forgetting runa in the advanced runa, right? Yuju was silent. After a while, Yuju stood up from the sofa and walked outside. Aochi Aoko, who was familiar with Yuju, understood. Yuju compromised. To be able to force Yuju to this extent, you're pretty good. Aochi Aoko sighed and narrowed her eyes. But, have you thought about how to deal with this guy before you learn forgetting runa? Deal with him however you want. Noah ruthlessly threw out this sentence. I believe that the student union president will take care of this matter. After saying this, Noah walked out of the living room without looking back. You want me to clean up your mess? A second later, an angry roar echoed throughout the mansion. Chapter 324. In the side hall of the Kyuenji mansion, there was a library that Aoko called the Devil's Den. It was a legacy of magic left behind by Yoju's mother. If the mansion was a treasure left behind by Yoju's father, then the library was a treasure left behind by Yoju's mother. Just like the mansion, Yuju treasured the library very much. Even Aoko didn't have many opportunities to enter it. Now, the library had finally welcomed the third guest of the mansion. Under Yoju's guidance, Noah came to the side hall of the Kyuenji mansion and entered the library. This was a library that was extremely shocking in all aspects. It was divided into two levels. The upper level was directly connected to the entrance of the side hall, while the lower level was like a basement. It was under a staircase at the front corner, occupying a very large area. Of course, this was nothing. What really shocked people was the scale of the collection. The bookshelves, which were comparable to the size of a building, were arranged neatly like a small mountain. The bookshelves were divided into two levels. The upper level was surrounded by corridors for people to walk through, as well as wooden railings. The lower level was built with 2 wooden ladders that were directly welded to the entrance of the corridor on the upper level. It looked more luxurious and elegant than ordinary buildings. On the extremely luxurious and tall bookshelves, books that looked old were neatly arranged on them. Based on this scale, the number of books here must be at least 10,000, as the most basic unit of calculation to give a specific number. Looking at the scale of the library in front of him, Noah, who had the idea of reading all the books in the library, was stunned. Perhaps because she noticed that Noah stopped, Yuju, who was leading the way in front, stopped and turned around. Perhaps because Noah asked her to bring him to this place that the girl cherished very much, Yoju's emotionless eyes revealed a hint of dissatisfaction. Unfortunately, Noah was already shocked by the number of books in front of him and didn't notice it at all. All the books here recorded magic? Seeing the shock and admiration in Noah's eyes, the dissatisfaction in Yoju's heart gradually dissipated. She was like a child whose favorite toy was praised and envied. Less than 10% of the books recorded magic. Yuju said faintly. The rest of the books recorded magic theories and related knowledge of the magic world. That's still very impressive. Noah sighed from the bottom of his heart. I thought my family's library was big enough. This place is not bad. Your family? Yuju looked at him inquisitively. Your family also has a library? Yes. Noah couldn't help but recall the huge library in the guild and smiled bitterly. So, I only went there once when I was a child. Yuju nodded silently, turned into a bookshelf, leaving such a sentence. There are a lot of books that record Rooney's magic here, but I can't remember where they are. You can find them yourself. After saying that, Yuju disappeared from the other end of the bookshelf, leaving Noah behind and disappearing without a trace. Seeing this, Noah once again looked around the magnificent library in front of him and sighed. It seems that it is impossible for me to read all the books here. Even if I only read about magic, it would be difficult. However, if he thought about it carefully, it wasn't strange. Magic has been passed down in this world for who knows how many years. There are rare magic left over from ancient times. There were extinct magic spells that were found in famous ruins. There were secret magic spells inherited from outstanding magicians. There are traditional magic that has been guiding magicians since ancient times. The number of these magic tricks is as endless as human knowledge. It can't be counted with numbers. Therefore, it was not surprising that the number of magic spells recorded in this library was frighteningly high. Noah believed that in the headquarters of the Magic Association, there must be an even more amazing library with a larger collection of books. If Noah wanted to read all the magic tricks in this world, it was absolutely impossible. No wonder Sir Guild leader called this place the Demon's Den, Noah muttered helplessly. Be realistic. Just remember some useful magic tricks. Although he said so, Noah still had a little ambition. Even if he couldn't read all the magic books here, at least, he had to read all the books on magic. Different from the simple enhancement magic, the Rooney magic was truly extensive and profound. Not only did each word represent a kind of power, but the words could also be combined with each other, allowing the power of the words to combine with each other and display new effects. There was once a famous magician in the Magic Association who said such a sentence. If someone learns all of it, then she has mastered all the mysteries of this world. The original meaning of this sentence was, if someone learns all of Magic Rune, then that person can use all the miracles in this world. Just like English letters can be taken out by themselves, and can also be combined to form English letters, and finally become a language. Isn't this broad and profound? Therefore, Magic Rune is even listed as a magic system in the magic world. Even if you learn all of the rune script, there are thousands of ways to combine them, simply innumerable. Of course, learning it is one thing, but being able to use it is another. After all, combining rune is not as simple as just putting them together. The stronger the effect of rune combined, the higher the magic attainment needed to learn it, And the more magic power needed to use it, the more magic power needed to use it. Noah doesn't have extravagant hopes of learning all the magic in this world. But only rune, if possible, Noah hopes to learn all of it. That doesn't only refer to rune script, but also the various ways to combine rune, which is the entire rune magic system. When he thought of the large number of books on rune magic in this library, Noah's heart was excited. Okay, let's begin. With this sentence as the end, Noah got into the tall bookshelf and began a long time of reading. Today is not a holiday. Whether it is Noah, Aoko Aozaki, Yuju, or Shizuka Kusaju, they all need to go to school. However, because of the poisoning incident last night, the magic circuit in Aoko Aozaki and Yoju's bodies has just recovered to the extent that they can be activated. It will take about 2 to 3 days for their magic power to completely flow smoothly and reach its peak state. Therefore, Aoko Aozaki and Yuju chose to take a leave of absence at the same time and stay in the manor house to recover. They strive to recover their combat power as soon as possible and throw themselves into the enemy. This time, the enemy not only has the wealth to squander a large number of expensive automatons, but also has enough strategy. Otherwise, they wouldn't have tricked Noah and the others and poisoned Aoko Aozaki and Yuju. In addition, there is the existence of a fantasy breed behind the enemy, so Aoko Aozaki and Yuju dare not be careless. Not only did they take a leave of absence to recover their magic power, but they also asked Noah to take a leave of absence. The Kyuenji residence is the end of the spirit vein in Sanyo City, so it can bring a lot of support to Aoko Aozaki and Yuju. Therefore, generally speaking, the enemy should not be able to break into such a base camp that can increase the manager's power. However, the enemy this time is different from the previous third-rate magicians. It is unknown if they will plot some tricks, but it is very likely that they will break into the manor house and choose to kill Aoko Aozaki and Yuju. Given Aoko Aozaki and Yoju's current state, even with the increase, there is no guarantee that they can defeat the enemy. It is more likely that they will be killed. In this way, Noah's guard is necessary. Noah's mission was originally only to deal with fantasy breeds, and protecting the 2 girls is not included in it. However, Yuju used the library as a reason to ask Noah to protect them, so Noah has no excuse to refuse. It was not until evening that Noah, who had read until now, returned to the living room of the manor house. However, when Noah returned to the living room, he saw Aoko Aozaki and Shizuka Kusakajuru, who are fiercely arguing about something. He was stunned on the spot. Chapter 325. In the brightly lit living room, Aoko and Shizuku Kusanagi were facing each other across the table. Although it was a confrontation, it looked like Aoko was angry, while Shizuku Kusanagi was calm. It was easy to guess who had the upper hand. Do you know what kind of situation you're in right now? Aoko said with a helpless look on her face as if she was about to burst into tears. Do you really think no one will kill you? I don't think so. Shizuku Kusanagi shook his head. I know I'm in danger. You know you're in danger right now? Aoko gritted her teeth as she yelled out. Then tell me, what did you just say? I want to go out. Shizuku Kusanagi answered obediently and looked at Aoko with a puzzled expression. Is there a problem? I want to ask you why you think there is no problem. Aoko helplessly held her forehead, and then with a fierce face, she unceremoniously shouted at Shizuka Kusakaju. Don't forget that you know our secret now. In order to prevent you from revealing our secret, we can kill you at any time. The only reason we haven't killed you now is that Noah protected you. How dare you ask for a yard after we give you an inch? Or do you want to go out? I know you will watch me. Shizuku Kusanagi seemed to be very distressed. But is there really no room for discussion? I promise I won't tell anyone. Who will believe you? Aoko almost flipped the table. Do you realize what kind of status you have now? You're not here as a guest. You're caught. You're a prisoner. Caught. Shizuku Kusanagi was shocked. Didn't you save me? Aoko's head hit the table in front of her with a bang, and she didn't get up for a long time. Looking at Aoko like this, Shizuka Kusajuro hesitated for a moment and chose to speak. Aoko, don't you feel pain? Aoko didn't want to speak. Shizuku Kusanagi didn't seem to notice Aoko's mood and asked, "Are you angry?" Aoko clenched her fists and trembled all over. On the other hand, Shizuka Kusajikuro continued to issue a challenge to the demon who was emitting do-chi. "Can I go out now?" Aoko suddenly raised her head and rolled up her sleeves without a care for her image. Just like a big sister who was about to fight, the magic mark on her arm blossomed with a dazzling phosphorescent light. "Enough. I'll just kill you right away." Wait. Shizuku Kusajikuro retreated and exclaimed, "I just want to go out." Noah, who was standing at the door of the living room, didn't even have the heart to complain. Just as he was about to speak, a cold voice sounded from behind Noah. "What are you arguing about?" The entire place fell silent. Yuju, who was holding a book in her hand, walked in step by step from outside. She directly passed by Noah's side and came into the living room. Her black eyes were directly nailed on Shizuku Kusajikuro, and there was a trace of murderous intent in her eyes. Obviously, Yuju really wanted to kill Shizuku Kusajikuro. Under Yuju's murderous gaze, Shizuku Kusajikuro closed his mouth and didn't speak anymore. Originally, when Shizuku Kusajikuro entered the mansion, Yuju was very unhappy. Now, Shizuku Kusajikuro made the entire mansion into a mess. If it wasn't for Noah's presence, even with Noah's guarantee, Yuju would have chosen to attack. Perhaps Shizuku Kusajikuro felt that he was in danger, so he closed his mouth? As for why he attracted such danger, poor Shizuku Kusajikuro couldn't figure it out. Noah, who felt a little funny, stepped forward and stood side by side with Yuju, and asked Shizuku Kusajikuro, "What do you want to do outside?" Seeing Noah's appearance, Shizuku Kusajikuro finally let out a sigh of relief and smiled. However, Shizuku Kusajikuro's words made Noah, Aoko Aozaki, and Yuju speechless at the same time. "I want to work outside." "Work outside?" Aoko Aozaki's eyes twitched, and Yuju raised her eyebrows. Even Noah was stunned. "Work outside?" In this situation where his life was in danger and he didn't even know if he would die in the next second, Shizuku Kusajikuro actually wanted to work outside? Did this wild child know that Aoko Aozaki and Yuju wanted to kill him because they were afraid that he would talk nonsense outside? He still wanted to go outside? And to work outside? I have to say, I underestimated your courage and overestimated your brain capacity. Noah rolled his eyes. Shizuku Kusajikuro, is working outside more important than your life? It was such an obvious question, but in the end, Shizuku Kusajikuro seriously thought about it and immediately gave such an answer. Both are important. Huh! Everyone was stunned. Although my life is important, if I don't work, I can't earn money. Shizuku Kusajikuro felt dissatisfied from the bottom of his heart. Money is a very convenient thing, you can buy anything, but without money, you can't get anything, not even food. If I can't earn money, even if you don't kill me, I will starve to death. Hearing this, Noah and Aoko Aozaki remembered. This transfer student from the mountains in front of them didn't have parents or relatives to rely on. In Sano City, Shizuku Kusajikuro could only rely on himself. If Shizuku Kusajikuro didn't support himself, then he would indeed die. However, after Shizuku Kusajikuro said this, Noah also remembered. I almost forgot that I still have a job as a tutor. Such an untimely sentence made Yuju dissatisfied and stared at Noah. You have to protect our safety. I know, I will call and ask for leave later. Noah said regretfully. If I don't go this time, I will lose a full 100,000 yen. 100,000 yen. Shizuku Kusajikuro's mouth directly opened into an O shape. Not to mention Shizuku Kusajikuro, even Yuju covered her mouth, and Aoko Aozaki was stunned. Your tutor's salary is so high? I teach homework and piano together, and the target is 2 or 3. Noah didn't know what kind of shocking fact he said, and said to himself, that family is quite rich, so they can earn about 30,000 yen in an hour. 30,000 yen an hour? Aoko Aozaki and Yuju looked at each other. 30,000 yen? Shizuku Kusajikuro looked at Noah with eyes full of admiration. I work 3 jobs a day, and I only get 70,000 yen a month. That's not strange, after all. Your duty is to be a student, and you have to spend 3/4 of your time on learning, so it's not strange that you don't earn much. Saying such a sentence, Noah frowned. I can't go to tutor recently. Didn't I lose hundreds of thousands all of a sudden? Hearing this, Aoko Aozaki felt sorry for Noah, and even Yuju turned her head away as if she had sinned. After all, it was these 2 girls who made Noah lose so much money. On the contrary, Noah just frowned, but didn't feel sorry at all. He came in front of Shizuku Kusajikuro and stretched out his hand. Under the limited state, a little bit of magical power was released and gathered in Noah's finger, making Noah's finger emit light. Then, Noah moved his finger on Shizuku Kusajikuro's chest and wrote a rune. A glowing rune immediately emerged from Shizuku Kusajikuro's chest and then disappeared into Shizuku Kusajikuro's body. This is the burning runa. Noah showed Shizuku Kusajikuro a smile that made him tremble with fear. Shizuku classmate, don't talk about magic and us outside, otherwise, it will burn and turn you into a piece of charcoal. Shizuku Kusajikuro tightly pursed his lips, and his head repeatedly nodded, indicating that he understood. It's good that you understand. Noah came in front of the sofa and sat down. Then you can go out, remember to come back before 10 o'clock, or it will still burn. Okay. Shizuku Kusajikuro, with a depressed expression, walked out of the living room. On the side, Yuju stared at Shizuku Kusajikuro's back, her eyes full of displeasure, as if she was against letting Shizuku Kusajikuro come back. Noah shook his head with a smile. Really, just like a child? Chapter 326. Not long after Shizuoka Kusanagi left the living room, the sound of the door opening and closing could be heard from the front entrance. After Shizuoka Kusanagi left the mansion, Yuju retracted her gaze from outside the living room and turned around. Her eyes were still full of dissatisfaction. Do you want him to stay here until you learn how to forget like nuns? Along with this sentence was Yuju's resistance that everyone could feel. Looking at the cold light flashing in Yuju's dark eyes, Noah knew that if Shizuoka Kusanagi really came back to the mansion and stayed here, Yuju would definitely go crazy. Even if she started a war with Noah, Yuju would still go crazy. Because this was Yuju's bottom line. I also object to letting that guy stay here. As a temporary cohabitant, Aoko strongly expressed her own opinion. I'm afraid I won't be able to live with that kind of guy. Without a doubt, both cohabitants insisted on not letting Shizuoka Kusanagi stay in the mansion. In any case, you've planted a burning nun in that guy's body that will activate when the conditions are met. Let him leave this place. If Aoko's previous speech was based on her personal feelings, then her current speech was based on her thoughts on the overall situation. We still need to deal with external enemies, and the enemy could break into the mansion at any time. Let that guy stay here. Let's not talk about whether Yuju will agree or not. Do we still need to protect him when facing the enemy? Yuju didn't say anything, but everyone knew what Yuju was thinking. Seeing this, Noah slightly sighed. I say, after witnessing the enemy's resourcefulness this time, don't tell me you really didn't consider anything? Aoko and Yuju were both stunned. Don't forget, last night, Shizuoka Kusanagi directly ignored Yuju's barrier and broke into the mansion. Noah suddenly said, At first, I thought that Shizuoka Kusanagi was used by the magician behind the scenes to lure Aoko away. But after that, I thought, is it possible that Shizuoka Kusanagi knew the whole truth from the beginning? After hearing Noah's words, Aoko and Yuju both woke up. The dissatisfaction in Yuju's eyes disappeared and was replaced by a solemn expression. You mean, Shizuoka Kusanagi is very likely to cooperate with the foreign magician to plot against us, instead of being used? I can only say that this possibility can't be ruled out. Noah shrugged. Thus, I protected him and allowed him to stay here not only because I felt that this guy was innocent and wanted to help him, but also because I felt that this guy had been putting on an act the entire time. I wanted to control him here and observe him while I was at it. Really? Aoko Aozaki asked doubtfully. Can that guy really do such a thing? Shizuoka Kusanagi looked like a fool. No one would think that he was a scheming person. I also think that he's just being used, but you can't judge a book by its cover. Maybe we're still in the enemy's trap? Noah sneered. After what happened last night, I don't want to be tricked again. Aoko and Yuju both nodded and agreed with Noah's idea. Then it's better to just kill him. Yuju took the opportunity to make a suggestion. Not only is he a witness to the magic, but he could also be the enemy's companion. We should kill him. He's just an ordinary person, even if he's a collaborator, how important can he be? Noah shook his head and said, on the contrary, if Shizuoka Kusanagi is really the enemy's collaborator, and the magician behind the scenes knows that we let him stay in the mansion, that magician will definitely pay more attention to this collaborator and let Shizuoka Kusanagi stay in the mansion. Then we can turn the tables and use him. After saying that, Noah looked at Yuju. He didn't know if it was because he had intimate contact with Yuju, but his tone became gentler. He was no longer as strong as before, and he spoke as if he was coaxing Yuju. I know that you value the mansion, but this is a special time. Just bear with it, okay? Yuju's expression became a little uncertain. She didn't know how to respond to Noah's gentle tone. After a while, she turned her head away. I'll try my best. Only then did Noah smile with satisfaction. Aoko, who saw this scene, snorted inexplicably. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Noah. In other words, you've actually planned everything, right? You can say that. Noah spread his hands and said to Aoko, with Yoju's familiar here, and this is Yoju's territory, it's easy to monitor Shizuoka Kusanagi. As long as there's something wrong with him, we can make a plan. If there's no problem, I'll make him forget everything here and return to the world of ordinary people. Since you've already considered this, what about the foreign magicians? Aoko Aozaki asked with a serious expression. Have you also thought of a plan to deal with him? Noah exchanged glances with Aoko and Yuju. Under the gazes of the two girls, he nodded. There's a basic plan. Aoko Aochi and Yoju's spirits were shaken, and they became serious. As you said before, this foreign magician has already eliminated a fulcrum of the enchantment. In addition to the fulcrum from last night, 2 of the 5 fulcrum points of Sanyo City's enchantment have been eliminated. Now there are only 3 left. Noah suddenly made such a suggestion. I hope that you can directly eliminate 2 of the 3 fulcrum points in Sanyo City, leaving only 1. Take the initiative to eliminate 2 of the fulcrum points. Aoko and Yuju were surprised at the same time. What kind of suggestion is this? Leaving those 2 fulcrum points is not beneficial to us at all. Noah explained aloud. Just like last night, the opponent can continue to play tricks and lead us to 1 fulcrum point while they eliminate the other fulcrum point. This is the first disadvantage. Even if there's a lesson from last night, if the enemy continues to appear, we won't be able to gather in one place to face the enemy. We will have to be separated, and 3 fulcrum points are 3 places. If the 3 of us all go out, each of us will guard 1 place, and the enemy can break through 1 by 1. Plus, your magic power hasn't completely recovered, so the enemy can succeed at any time. If something goes wrong, then you and the fulcrum points will be wiped out together. This is the second disadvantage. And if we take the initiative to eliminate 2 of the 3 fulcrum points, then the benefits will be ours. With a calm tone, Noah analyzed bit by bit. First, the enemy is a resourceful person. If they notice that we have taken the initiative to eliminate 2 of the fulcrum points, they will definitely have some scruples. They will be worried that we will ambush them or set up some traps, so they won't dare to act boldly. This means that you can fight for time to recover. Second, because there is only 1 fulcrum point left, even if the enemy attacks the fulcrum point, we can gather our strength to deal with them. We won't have to worry about falling into a trap. Thirdly, the ambush and traps mentioned earlier were not just empty words. We will set up layers of traps at the last fulcrum. If the other party really wants to obtain the spirit vein of Sanyi City, they will definitely make a move. At that time, we will be calm and unruffled. We will wait for the other party to come and take the initiative to let the other party have a taste of our arrangements." After revealing all his thoughts in one breath, Noah smiled. Since there are only benefits and no disadvantages, then what's the point of leaving those two fulcrum points? Aoko and Yuju were dumbfounded as they listened to Noah's analysis one by one. They couldn't believe that Noah suddenly became so smart. Aoko and Yuju didn't know that in the world of The Dark Bullet, the political game with the Tentong Chrysanthemum Prime Minister for more than a year had already made Noah's methods and vision change. If it wasn't because the world of Absolute Dual Blades did not have as much pressure as the world of The Dark Bullet, and because he lived the life of an ordinary high school student after coming to this world, which made Noah a little relaxed, Noah wouldn't have been so easily tricked by the enemy last night. Now, after being stimulated by the enemy, Noah's methods and vision naturally returned. Thinking of what happened last night, the corner of Noah's mouth slowly rose. The good show has just begun. Chapter 327. No matter how fiercely the magicians in Sanyi City were fighting over the spirit vein, the surface world of Sanyi City was still as peaceful as before. However, those who had the identities of the outer and inner worlds would definitely be able to discover that 4 of the 5 fulcrum points of Sanliang City's spirit vein barrier had all disappeared. 4 of the 5 fulcrums had already been eliminated. In addition to the 2 fulcrums that were eliminated by the magician hiding in the dark, Aoko and Yuju worked through the night and eliminated 2 of the remaining 3 fulcrums of the spirit vein barrier. Evidently, after the previous discussion, Aoko and Yuju both adopted Noah's plan to deal with the enemy, even though they didn't say anything on the surface. This more or less made Noah feel gratified. What did this mean? It meant that Aoko and Yuju both believed in Noah. At least, after making a choice, the 2 girls chose to believe in Noah. After all, if Noah didn't stand on the same side as Aoko and Yuju in the end, eliminating 2 fulcrums was equivalent to helping the enemy destroy the spirit vein barrier of Sanyo City. The spirit vein barrier of Sanyo City was established by Aoko's grandfather, the former 5th magician. If one wanted to destroy the spirit vein barrier of Sanyo City, unless one's ability far surpassed Aoko's grandfather, it would take a long time to destroy it. Aoko and Yuju were the managers of the spirit vein in Sanyo City and had the right to control the spirit vein. If they wanted to eliminate the fulcrums of the spirit vein, it would take a lot of effort. Therefore, if they didn't choose to believe in Noah, Aoko and Yuju wouldn't have taken the initiative to eliminate the fulcrums of the spirit vein barrier. After Aoko and Yuju took the initiative to eliminate the fulcrums of the spirit vein barrier, the following period of time was indeed quite peaceful. Obviously, the magician hiding in the dark also felt that it was inconceivable that Aoko and Yuju would take the initiative to eliminate the fulcrums of the spirit vein barrier and didn't dare to act rashly. Currently, Aoko Aozaki and Yuju had already set up many traps at the last fulcrum of Sanyi City's spirit vein barrier. Yuju had even placed the 6-song chocolate at the last fulcrum and patrolled it every day. As long as the magician hiding in the dark left a trace on the last fulcrum, Noah and the others who were on standby in the mansion would immediately discover it. In other words, apart from using the spirit vein barrier to monitor the entire Sanyo City, the only thing left to do was to wait. During this period of time, Noah would go to the library of the Kyuenji mansion every day and find all the books related to strengthening magic and runi magic in the library, absorbing the magic knowledge of this world like a sponge. Aoko and Yuju also needed to monitor the movement of the spirit vein in Sanyo City and communicate with the person in charge of the Hetien Church regularly, so they were a lot busier than Noah. It was worth mentioning that Shizuka Kusajikuro also moved into the Kyuenji mansion under various threats and promises. Yuju was dissatisfied with this, but because of Noah's previous advice and suggestions, she was no longer as resistant as before. However, she would send a messenger bird to monitor Shizuka Kusajikuro every day and didn't give Shizuka Kusajikuro any face. In the end, she didn't communicate with Shizuka Kusajikuro at all. Aoko didn't completely ignore Shizuka Kusajikuro because they were in the same school and she was the president of the student council, but the communication between them was also very limited. This situation would probably continue until Shizuka Kusajikuro was cleared of being in cahoots with a foreign magician. The poor Shizuka Kusajikuro didn't know that he was being monitored by a chirping messenger bird every day. He was also ignored by his roommates except for Noah. He maintained the 3 points of manner, school, work, and lived a self-satisfied life. Noah thought that such a peaceful life before the storm would continue until the magician hiding in the dark appeared. However, one day after a week, such a peaceful life was broken by an unexpected guest. On this day, Noah went to Yoju's library as usual and studied the use of advanced runi magic in the library. Unlike other libraries, Yoju's library didn't have any smell of books, and the seemingly old books wouldn't decay with the passage of time. Such an environment was like the fairyland where witches lived in fairy tales. It looked simple and ordinary, but if one thought about it carefully, it would be incredible. Because of this, for Yuju, the library was a place where she could relax and feel at ease. In addition, Noah wasn't the kind of person who would be half-hearted when reading, or not cherish the books and casually destroy them. Now, Yuju was no longer against staying in the library with Noah to read. If a third party came to the library, they would definitely notice. Every day, Noah and Yuju would stay together in the corner of the library to read books. The distance between the two was not too far nor too close. It was as if they had blended into the environment of the library, immersing themselves in the world of books. This could be considered the tacit understanding that Noah and Yuju had developed in this period of time. The same tacit understanding was also developed between Noah and Ayoko. However, it wasn't through reading, but when Noah was practicing Magic Bullet, Ayoko would often appear as if she wanted to compete with Noah, cutting in and silently practicing together. If no one came to pay attention to Noah and Yuju, the two of them would continue to read in silence until the evening. But today, right after they finished their lunch, the sound of footsteps suddenly echoed from the entrance of the library, attracting Noah and Yuju's attention. Yuju was the happiest when she was reading. This kind of happiness was disturbed, causing Yuju to show a rare expression of displeasure. She stared at the entrance of the library, and after a while, a trace of surprise appeared in her eyes. This was because the people who came to the library were people who were usually resistant to entering. Swaying her waist-length black hair, Ayoko's face carried the same displeasure as Yuju as she walked into the library. Looking at Ayoko's displeased face, Noah curiously asked, "It's really strange that you would appear here." Hearing this, Ayoko was unhappy and didn't respond to Noah's words, making Noah even more curious. What? Could it be that Jingshi made you angry again? It's best if it's only to this extent, then at least there won't be any possibility of trouble. Ayoko coldly snorted and looked straight at Noah, her eyes full of seriousness. "There's someone outside looking for you." "Looking for me?" Noah was stunned. Even Yuju turned her head and looked at Noah. Noah saw the displeasure and seriousness in Ayoko's eyes. After a moment of silence, he closed the book in his hand. Under Yuju's gaze, he silently walked to the place where the book was originally placed, put the book back, and then walked out of the library. Ayoko and Yuju looked at each other and followed. Without Yuju's permission, even if someone came to visit the mansion, Ayoko wouldn't bring that person into the mansion and challenge Yuju's bottom line. Knowing this, Noah directly left the mansion, went to the courtyard, and walked in the direction of the iron fence. It wasn't until he walked out of the iron fence and came to the outside ramp that Noah saw a figure. A figure that made Noah frown. Not only Noah, but even Yuju, who came out with Ayoko, was very surprised to see the visitor, and her expression became uncertain. It was not because of anything else. It was because the visitor's identity was very special. Since the first time we met, I had a premonition that we would meet again, but I didn't expect it to come so soon. A tall man wearing a priest's attire that resembled a black cloak stood at the bottom of the ramp. His voice was steady, and he exuded a dangerous aura that outsiders could not comprehend. He looked at Noah from afar, and the moment their eyes met, a smile that came from the bottom of his heart appeared on his face. Do you want to come with me to find the lamb hidden in the city? Chapter 328. Whoosh! The cold winter wind seemed to have no regard for human feelings at all as it swept through the park that was rarely visited by people. The leaves fluttered up and down with the cold wind. The morning water droplets seemed to have been preserved until now. Under the attack of the cold wind, they dripped down little by little. There was not much shelter around the park. There was only a road that connected the front and back of the park. Of course, it would not weaken the cold wind. Therefore, even during the day, not many people would pass by here. It was quite desolate. Under such circumstances, two figures walked over from the other side of the road as if they were out of place and arrived at the park. This park was one of the fulcrums of Sanio City's spiritual veins enchantment, which was set up by the magician hiding in the dark not long ago. After about 10 days, Noah came here again. The difference was that this time, it was not late at night. The people who came with Noah were not two beautiful girls. The fulcrums of Sanio City's spiritual veins enchantment were not inside the park. It had been eliminated by Aoko Aozaki and Yuju. It was unknown whether when Binjiangli deliberately brought Noah here to mock Noah's mistake last time. In silence, they came to the inside of the park. Whoosh! The biting cold wind still attacked mercilessly, making the hem of Noah's coat and when Binjiangli's cloak move up and down in the wind. Looking around the park, Noah's indifferent voice sounded. The so-called lamb hidden in the city you mentioned is here? Noah was still trying to figure out the purpose of when Binjiangli's sudden visit, claiming that it had nothing to do with them in front of Aoko Aozaki and Yuju, and bringing him out alone when the two girls were slightly unfriendly. However, Noah still came with when Binjiangli. Because intuition told Noah that when Binjiangli definitely knew a lot of things. It should be here, right? Undoubtedly, he was a priest. However, when Binjiangli used an inauspicious and pious tone to say such a sentence as if it had nothing to do with him. If my memory serves me right, when I was asked to invite you out, this is the place the lost lamb mentioned. Requested? Noah's eyes flickered slightly. At this moment, an elegant, yet violent, yet very pleasant voice sounded from the other side of the park. I did ask you to do such a thing, but when did I become the lost sheep that you're talking about? Pretentious bastard. Along with this voice, clear footsteps could be heard from the other side of the park. In the next moment, in the bleak cold wind, a slender but unusually tall and full figure entered Noah's field of vision. It was a lady with short reddish-brown hair, wearing a simple green coat but looking unusually noble. She had a scarf around her neck. She was like a star bathing in the light, exuding a strong sense of presence that could not be ignored. She had a strong and stern face as she gradually approached. Looking at that pretty face, Noah could not help but feel a sense of familiarity. It was as if he was facing an existence similar to that face every day. However, this feeling was quickly thrown to the back of Noah's mind. This was because, no matter how one looked at it, Noah's outstanding sensing ability sensed a kind of power from this attractive lady. Magic. In other words, this lady in front of him was a magician. Just as this thought arose in Noah's mind, another feeling seemed to deliberately oppose this thought, drilling into Noah's heart. It was an indescribable sense of dissonance. Instantly, the sense of familiarity, dissonance, and power rolled in Noah's heart at the same time, causing Noah to slightly squint his eyes as he looked at the lady. Compared to Noah, when Bing Yongli smiled calmly as if she was greeting a friend she had not seen for a long time. We meet again, Cheng. If possible, I really don't want to see you again, because I'm afraid I won't be able to resist killing you. The lady named Cheng said these words with a vicious tone. When she looked at Noah, her eyes became sharp, but her tone became much gentler. This is the first time we meet face to face, right? This sentence allowed Noah to confirm the other party's identity. This lady named Cheng in front of him was the magician who had been hiding in the dark, and who had tricked Noah and his group. Noah sneered and said with a hidden meaning. So, the church has joined forces with the foreign magician? Although the conversation between Cheng and Wen Bing Yongli made it seem like they were enemies, it was obvious that they knew each other. Moreover, Wenbing Yongli had always known the identity of the foreign magician who had invaded Sanyi City, but she had kept it a secret and did not provide it to the manager of Sanyi City's spiritual vein. Saying that there was nothing fishy about these two? Who would believe that? You're wrong. However, Qing sneered. We didn't join forces, we just reached an agreement not to invade each other. Don't be surprised. For the worms of the church, internal strife between magicians is definitely something they would like to see. After saying this, Cheng did not give Wenbing Yongli a chance to refute. She looked at Wenbing Yongli coldly. There's nothing for you to do here, can you leave now? Wenbing Yongli revealed an emotionless smile without the slightest trace of anger. She turned her head and said to Noah, I'll be waiting for you outside. After saying this, Wenbing Yongli turned around and left the park decisively. From the beginning to the end, Cheng had been staring at Wenbing Yongli's back. Noah could clearly feel that Orange seemed to heave a sigh of relief after Wenbing Yongli left the park. Don't mind him. Cheng put one hand on her waist and tilted her head slightly, as if she was looking down at her opponent. She smiled sweetly. If I let that guy continue to stay here, I can't guarantee that he will suddenly pull out a knife and swing it at my neck. That guy is a lunatic. I don't have the confidence to pay attention to him all the time when I'm talking to others. Really? Noah curled his lips indifferently. I don't mind. Of course. Cheng acknowledged Noah's ability. After all, you're a monster who can even block Bio. That guy should be no different from a moving mantis in your eyes, right? Bio. Noah raised his dark eyes slightly. You're really the magician who chased away the golden beast in the forest that day? Although that was what he said, Noah's heart was filled with doubts. Noah had completely memorized the magician's aura that day. Although Cheng's aura was more or less the same as that of the other day, Noah felt that something was not right for some reason. He felt that something was wrong. With this feeling, Noah fully activated his sensing ability and scanned Cheng directly. After a while, Noah's eyes suddenly focused. A puppet? In Cheng's eyes, a sharp light that even men would be afraid of flashed past. Then Cheng laughed out loud. You're really not an ordinary person. I was confident that I wouldn't be discovered by you. Saying so, Orange let down all his guard and raised his hand in surrender. You're right. This is just a mannequin in front of you. I put my will into this mannequin, and that's why I dared to talk to you. I didn't think I would be discovered so quickly. It seems my skills are not good enough. I need to practice. Practice? She could create a puppet that was almost the same as the real person. Even Noah didn't notice it at first and only felt that something was wrong. She still needed to practice with such skills? If she continued to practice, she might even be able to create a puppet that was exactly the same as the real person. This woman named Cheng actually had such skills. It was really shocking. No wonder she could spend so much money on expensive automatons. However, if this was the case, even if Noah really wanted to attack Cheng, it would be useless. After suppressing the thoughts in his heart, Noah said impatiently, Tell me your purpose, magician. Purpose? Orange closed his eyes, a strange and cold smile appearing on his face. Speaking of which, there really is such a thing. As soon as he finished speaking, Orange opened his eyes and looked at Noah with a meaningful gaze. Who are you? Chapter 329. Who are you? In the park, the temperature in the air suddenly dropped to freezing point. Meeting Orange's cold and stern eyes, Noah smiled faintly. You don't know who I am? Noah knew that Orange was not asking for his name, but his identity. However, Noah did not know why Orange asked him this question. Did the other party discover something strange? Or was it simply because Orange wanted to investigate Noah's identity but couldn't? Although Noah had hacked into the national database, left his personal information there, and forged an identity, the identity of the surface world obviously did not apply to the inner world. If Orange could not find any traces of Noah in the magic world after some investigation, it would not be strange for Orange to be suspicious of Noah's identity. No one knew what Orange was thinking. Looking at Noah's faintly smiling face, Orange suddenly laughed. Do you know why Bio is following me? Hearing this, Noah frowned. This was indeed a mystery. Logically speaking, as a fantasy breed that was equivalent to mystery and miracles, the golden wolf called Bio had no reason to listen to Orange, a magician. Compared to the fantasy breed that only existed in fantasy and legends, human magicians were too weak. They were so weak that if they were bitten, most of them would not be able to survive. In this case, why would the golden wolf listen to Orange's orders? As you can see, Bio is a werewolf, and there is an atavism in the werewolf tribe. He has surpassed the silver wolf that should be the leader of the werewolves, crossed the category of magical beast, and became an existence of fantasy beast. Orange seemed to be amused by something and let out an untimely and creepy laugh. Originally, as such a high concentration of mystery and the embodiment of mystery, Bio should have the intelligence of any creature, but Bio underwent a mutation and evolved in a strange direction. Suddenly, Noah's gaze turned cold. Evolved in a strange direction? There was indeed something wrong with the golden wolf, Bio. You noticed it too, didn't you? Orange stared at Noah. That's right, Bio has already started to surpass the category of illusory beast and evolve towards divine beast. And the price of this evolution is that Bio will lose his intelligence. There was no excitement in Orange's eyes as he spoke in a mocking tone. Bio, who should have been born as a perfect creature, even if his strength exceeds the category of a fantasy breed and is probably stronger than a dragon, who is said to be at the peak of the fantasy breed, he doesn't have intelligence at all. He's just like a beast with great strength. Can this really be considered evolution? A strange light appeared in Noah's eyes. According to Orange, the golden wolf Bio was supposed to be a perfect creature. He was supposed to be a fantasy breed that only existed in fantasy and legends. He was supposed to be born in this world and possess intelligence that was comparable to that of humans. But for some reason, the golden wolf Bio seemed to have undergone a strange evolution. His strength had increased tremendously, to the point where even Orange's evaluation of him as a dragon standing at the peak of the fantasy breed couldn't compare to him. However, his intelligence had been affected, and he hadn't been able to evolve. A powerful beast. Orange's description was perfect for the golden wolf Bio. But why would the golden wolf Bio undergo such a change? This was something that Orange couldn't figure out. But Noah was almost certain that this had something to do with the world fragment that existed in the golden wolf Bio's body. Although this was just a guess, Noah was almost 100% certain. After all, the world fragment could exist in all kinds of forms. It wasn't strange that it would affect a fantasy breed when it appeared in its body. And the world was fair. Through the influence, the golden wolf Bio obtained great strength and evolved at a higher level of life. At the same time, the golden wolf Bio's intelligence was only comparable to that of an ordinary beast. This was the price, right? Orange was right to be so sarcastic. That couldn't be considered evolution at all. No matter how strong he was, without enough intelligence, even a mythical beast would be no more than an ordinary beast. Looking at the sarcastic Orange, Noah's furrowed brows slowly relaxed. You're actually with such a dangerous thing? If the golden wolf Bio's intelligence was only comparable to that of an ordinary beast, then it would be normal for him to attack people. It was a miracle that nothing happened to Orange while he was with such a dangerous existence. Orange also understood what Noah meant and raised his eyebrows. Bio won't hurt me. I signed a contract with him. With the restrictions of the contract, Bio won't be able to hurt me. You signed a contract with that wolf? Noah asked in surprise. His first thought was disbelief. If the golden wolf Bio had the intelligence of a human, then they could negotiate and sign a contract. But now, the golden wolf Bio only had the intelligence of a beast. How could he sign a contract with a human? What was the difference between that and a ferocious lion obediently offering its neck to a human and putting a collar on a human while hunting in the forest every day? Orange seemed to enjoy the surprise of Noah, who had been calm all this while and even saw through her true form. She smiled happily. Actually, I was also very confused. When I found Bio in the cave in Northern Europe, I noticed Bio's condition. I thought I was at my wit's end and tried to sign a contract with him. In the end, Bio accepted it without any resistance. At that time, I thought I was dreaming. As he spoke, Orange crossed his arms, and the smile on his face became slightly arrogant. Luckily, Bio only had the intelligence of a beast. He didn't understand that if he wanted to resist me, he had to break the contract first. Otherwise, he would be bound by the contract and have to listen to my orders. This saved me a lot of trouble. Hearing this, even Noah smiled bitterly in his heart. With the power of the Golden Wolf Bio, breaking the contract was a piece of cake. But at this time, the disadvantage of his lack of intelligence showed. If the Golden Wolf Bio wanted to resist Orange, he had to break the contract. But he just couldn't understand this point. Undoubtedly, he was a dog with sharp teeth that could bite off a collar on its neck. He was tied up, but he didn't know that he had to bite off the collar on his neck first. Instead, he foolishly wanted to rush out. In the end, he couldn't escape. Thinking of this, Noah couldn't help but feel suspicious. Why would the Golden Wolf Bio accept Orange's contract for no reason? Actually, Noah didn't know that this was also due to the influence of the world fragment. Just like the world fragments in Between Worlds, the world fragments also longed for Noah to fix them. This longing affected the Golden Wolf Bio, causing him to have the subconscious of looking for Noah. Orange definitely didn't know that the reason why the Golden Wolf Bio accepted the contract without any resistance was because of the world's guidance. Just like how Noah received a hint from the world about the location of the world fragment, the Golden Wolf Bio subconsciously wanted to find Noah. Because of the world fragment in his body, the moment he saw Orange, he had the world's hint that he could reach his goal by following this person. Therefore, the Golden Wolf Bio became Orange's familiar. Noah didn't know all of this. Orange didn't know either. The Golden Wolf Bio, who only had the intelligence of a wild beast, didn't know either. Of course, although Orange didn't know what was going on, she noticed that other than the strange direction of Bio's evolution, there was something strange about him. Do you know? Orange looked at Noah coldly. Ever since we signed the contract, Bio has never disobeyed my orders. The only time it disobeyed my orders was when it suddenly disappeared and appeared in front of you. Furthermore, ever since it saw you, Bio has become a lot more berserk. If it wasn't for the restriction of the contract, I would have been bitten to death by it. What did you do to Bio? Why did Bio become so violent after seeing you? Or is there something on you that attracted Bio? Orange looked straight at Noah. I was curious about this, so I started to investigate you. However, I didn't find any traces of you in the magic world. Your identity in the normal world is also very suspicious. You can't be trusted at all. Orange's irritable voice slowly echoed in the air. You? Who the hell are you? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.